Hello everyone and welcome to this Nintendo Life. My name is Nbz and I have some tissue up my nose, but that is...
The sound of your voice sounds like you have tissue up your nose. That's the best bit.
It does. Look, it has to match. I'm a little bit sick, I'm a little bit dreary, but I'm here today to present...
Would you say you've got the plague?
I might have the plague, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to say I'm going to welcome you all to episode 50 of this Nintendo Life. This has been a long time coming, Bally, but we finally made it.
We finally have. It's been a whole lot of podcasting.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we're recording this on official International Podcast Day.
Yes.
So happy Podcast Day, everyone. Despite the fact that this will be quite a bit of time after that has happened when this show goes out, but nonetheless, the spirit of Podcast Day remains with you. Bally, have you listened to a podcast today? Have you indulged?
I listened to the Giant Bombcast talk an awful lot about Destiny.
Yeah, great. Good stuff. I'm sure that we'll have loads of chat about Destiny on this special episode because, that's what the video game industry is all about. Of course not, no, we're going to be talking about a bit more important DLC as regards us, but before we do that, Bally, how about you go ahead and lay out the show for us? What is this 50th episode got in store?
As usual, we're going to talk about what we've been playing, but then for the big episode 50 special, we're going to lay out the official TNL top 50 games of all time.
Yeah, we're crazy, basically. That's what we're saying to you.
It's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
And long.
Yeah.
And heated.
Yeah, I'm sure all those things will combine together to create quite a listen. A mess. Yeah, no, a mess is a good way of putting it. I agree.
A mess of podcasting gold.
Yes, so yeah, that's going to be a fun time. I hope you guys will look forward to that. But before we do that, we're just going to get on with the rest of the show. How about we talk about the video games we've been playing? Bally, you finished a Zelda game again for like the 7th time in this podcast history.
It has been about 7, I must say.
That's funny, yeah, it's about true, yeah.
That is a really good guesstimate, which is probably might even be spot on if I could be bothered to count them out. But I completed Ocarina of Time.
Welcome to the club.
It didn't take me 10 years.
No, it didn't.
Sort of.
I mean,
if you technically count when I started the GameCube remake, that was probably over 10 years ago.
Probably. I mean, Wind Waker came out in 2003, right? And that was a bonus disc with that.
Yeah, so I definitely played maybe 1 or 2 dungeons way back then. But
yeah, so the time you started this game has been about 12 years. So we both took our damn time with Ocarina, didn't we?
But it was worth it because I really think the ending of that game, and I shouldn't say the ending, I mean the end few hours of that game are really strong. Really.
What do you feel about Ganon's Tower? Did you like the setup there? I always found it's a kind of an easy end game. Like you're just going through these rooms and stuff. It's kind of fun, but it's it's not too challenging.
It's fun. I found it challenging because I attempted it without fire arrows.
Oh
and
dear,
then I
bad
realized
idea.
that I was hitting my head against a brick wall, so I went back and got the fire arrows, came back. Then I ran out of something else, went back. There's a lot of, when you run out of, say, like bombs or arrows or whatever in most 3D Zeldas, they're normally quite nearby in patches of grass or like in some pot you can smash locally. Ocarina of Time just feels a lot like the 2D Zeldas, the original 2D Zeldas, I should add, where if you run out of an item, you can sometimes find yourself going back quite a long way to get.
Really? Did you find that? Because for me, I never had an issue with that at all. Maybe it was because
Never? Like not running out of bombs or arrows or things?
No, not really. I mean, maybe I upgraded all the bomb bags and got like maximum arrows or close to it. So I don't think I really felt a problem there. And also, like especially at the end of each of those room sections in Ganon's Tower, if you don't have any magic on your magic meter, there's a pot literally right next to the door that gives it to you. So all the stuff that is necessary to beat the dungeon is there. I don't know.
I think that might not be true for this final dungeon, but
okay, maybe.
I see what you're saying.
I think Ocarina does a really good job generally of giving you that stuff. Like pots will be placed strategically enough in rooms where you need to use that certain item. I think it's way better than Link to the Past. Link to the Past is kind of terrible all over for that stuff. But
yeah, I prefer it to Link to the Past. I'd agree.
Yeah, I do as well.
I think I just think there's something that's incredibly hard to articulate about the final boss battle, the final cutscenes. Um, that's incredibly epic, and it's almost effortlessly epic compared to other Zelda 3D Zeldas that we love, like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, which all have their own stamp on how to be epic and their own unique twist. Whereas Ocarina is so what's unique about Ocarina, I guess it's the time travel. It's hard to describe what else is so unique. I think the character of Sheik is fantastic. It's so interesting, and it's such a shame because, and this was on some YouTube video I watched recently about Twilight Princess. Apparently, Sheik was potentially going to be in Twilight Princess,
Oh,
and they
interesting.
cut the character, and that's where they got the model for Smash Brothers Brawl, for example,
Ah,
for
very cool.
Sheik. So it was like ready to go and wasn't used. But no, just Sheik in general is a really cool character.
I
Um,
mean, it's like one of the best representations of Zelda. Like, it paints her not as this passive figure, but as a real, you know, driving force in the story.
and like the history of the Sheikah, yeah. And I really enjoyed learning about the Gerudo tribe, how there's one male per generation.
Oh, did
You
you
know,
not know that
I
before
didn't
this
know
game?
the detail of it. I knew he was a Gerudo, and I knew that they were all women, but I didn't really associate that there was only one male per generation.
Yeah, that's how it works. And then he just populates the
I
whole
know,
Earth, I
and that
guess.
he had turned bad, and then they sort of rebelled against him, and then that's quite interesting. And like the whole Gerudo area, the Gerudo Desert, the fortress, that's a
That
really
fortress
tough
is
part.
a pain in the ass, man. I'll
It's
tell you.
tough. It's tough. I managed to
Yeah,
do it without a guide, but it took me a good 40 minutes, an hour maybe or so. It really was a slog, but it was really good. I did enjoy
yeah.
that.
How did you feel about the Spirit Temple going back and forth between young Link and adult Link?
It's fine. I enjoyed that. No, it was good. It's quite a long temple. I thought all the temples in this game, like I said last time I talked about Ocarina, were long. Not just in generic length, but just because they're quite difficult. A lot of them
Right, you
have
were
some.
taking time to figure them out and
Yeah,
like work your
absolutely.
way around them and getting lost and that kind of
Yeah, and
thing.
I was trying really hard not to use guides.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
the funny thing about this is like really your knowledge of Ocarina prior to going into playing the 3D version was first three dungeons.
I've never seen the Spirit Temple in my life.
Right.
I will honestly outrightly say I've never seen any room in the Spirit Temple, to my knowledge, in my life. And like it was all
Before this point, of
before
course.
this point. Yeah.
Whereas for me, I have like this weird encyclopedic knowledge of Ocarina of Time that means that I know exactly what to do on every boss, and I
Yeah.
remember the sequences, and I know that to kill Ganon, you go through his legs and use the hammer, and there's this weird
Yeah.
trick that speedrunners use with the Deku stick. Like, my knowledge of Ocarina is like way greater than it should be for the fact that I've only actually beaten the game once.
Exactly. Like I would say I have that knowledge about Wind Waker, but I've played that game at least to the Tower of the Gods maybe up to 5, 6 times, and I've
Yeah.
completed it twice, almost 3 times. So it is quite creepy how you know so much about Ocarina, especially as a lot of those little things are more intricate with Ocarina than
I
a
mean,
game like
Ocarina
Wind
right
Waker.
really goes back to even like when we were first downloading videos from the internet. Because we came across speed runs of Ocarina and we were like, "Oh, this is so cool!" So I just downloaded a bunch of speed runs of Ocarina to watch on my laptop, and because of that, I just knew all these areas and I knew the crazy strategies that people were using to get through them. Um, and yeah, it was a fun time, but it also just opened me up to everything in the game and kind of I guess spoiled, but not really
Hmm.
for me. But you know,
I mean, yeah, I mean, and I must be one of the only people on the planet who's a gamer who's left to play the end of Ocarina blind, sort of
right?
thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and especially being able to play it blind on the 3D version, which, as we've discussed, is much better in many ways than the
yeah, yeah.
original. That was really great to play, and it's it's up there in my favorite Zeldas. I gotta admit it. It's not one I'm dying to play again like other Zeldas, but it's really solid. It's really great, and I thought the game world and a big criticism of a game like Twilight Princess is that the towns don't lack much um, atmosphere, much. It doesn't feel alive, whereas the
Right,
towns in
yeah.
this game feel incredibly alive. And I love the juxtaposition when you do go through time and the Reed Deads take over Castletown, for example, and then
Yes,
it's
what a
really
great
like,
moment that is when you
yeah,
walk out the
Ocarina is
graveyard.
way darker than I realized. Just the
Oh yeah,
amount
I
of
mean the
Reed
Shadow
Deads,
Temple alone
the
is
Shadow
like one of the
Temple,
darkest things.
it's just so much dead people everywhere.
Yeah,
So many. It just loves to talk about death all the time in that game. Uh, and I mean, I've still got to play Majora. This game has definitely made me want to play Majora more. I'll probably
sure.
give it a bit of time, but I'll eventually pick up that game because I am
Yeah, me too.
intrigued.
I want to play through Majora myself. Again, I kind
Yes.
of know that game because I've watched people
See,
play
I'm
it.
completely blind to Majora as well.
Yeah,
I
that's kind of
know,
great for you
I
actually, I
know
think.
tiny little things here and there, but I'm definitely blind in general to that game, and I'm intrigued to see what it's like because I think a 3D Zelda on the 3DS, or in my case, new 3DS, it was really nice. Worked really well,
Yeah.
and it'll be a luxury having the dual analog stick to control. So
Yeah, that will be good. And maybe maybe we can do a backlog club on it or something.
that's
We'll
an
see.
idea. That's an
Yeah,
idea.
maybe. Who knows?
Uh,
We'll see if that comes to fruition. But Bally, you didn't just play Ocarina of Time because something else happened. There was a
so
DLC released onto the world,
yes,
a free DLC, which
and
is kind of nice.
I kind of knew about this when it was announced maybe a few months ago. It was part of the initial Kickstarter with Shovel Knight, but
Right? Yeah.
it was sort of formally announced, I guess, with a trailer a few months ago. And the trailer came, and I was like, "That looks all right, fine. I'm sure I'll might." I think at that point I was still up for playing through the whole game again, but I wasn't that pumped about it.
Yeah.
So then you were just talking to me on Skype, and you said, "Oh yeah, the Plague of Shadows DLC is like here today." I was like, "Oh right, I guess I'll download it." And I like,
Yeah, and at that time I was like in the depths of Metal Gear and Mario Maker and Tales from the Borderlands and like 6 other games. I was like,
yeah.
I'll play this, but I don't know when.
Well,
Like, it just came out of nowhere.
I'd like just finished Ocarina of Time. I wasn't really up for getting heavily back into Mario Maker, which I still need to do. But so I was like, let's give this a go. Played the first level, and I
Died a
really
lot, I
died a
guess.
lot, but I really took to it. I think I wasn't expecting um, Plague Knight to control in such a unique fashion compared to Shovel Knight.
Have we said that we're talking about Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows
Oh
here? I'm
yeah,
not sure if
yeah.
you
I'm
even said the
really
name.
bad at that, aren't I? Just going
Yeah.
off at a tangent. So this
Yeah.
is Shovel Knight: Plague of Shadows,
Yeah.
and yeah. So Plague Knight is the beaked knight.
The Beaked Knight. Yeah, he's
Beaked Knight.
that hat is something like Victorian, isn't it?
No,
It's
do you not remember studying the bubonic plague in
no,
school?
I'm sure that was something with Dr. Wilson, and I just
So
didn't pay any attention.
doctors would use that mask, and then in the big nose, they would stuff tons and tons of like herbs and spices.
Oh wow,
Because
okay.
at that point in time, it's way before Victorian, I believe. I think it's much older. I can't remember the exact date. So anyone who wants to write in about the bubonic plague,
Yeah, sure.
this nintendolife@gmail.com. But so they would stuff spices and herbs down the snout of the nose because they thought that if you're smelling something nice around an area that's full of disease and the plague, then you're like immune.
Oh, interesting.
It was complete baloney. It didn't work.
Right, yeah.
But it's what doctors thought at the time.
Okay.
And they also gave those masks to certain people who they thought they could cure of the plague. So that's
Right.
like where that mask comes from.
Okay.
Enough history from Bally for one day.
Sure.
But,
So anyway, yeah, that's Plague Knight. He's
Yeah.
wearing one of those.
he's wearing
and,
one of those.
So he controls really differently from Shovel Knight, and I think that is the first thing that strikes you when you pick up this character is no longer do you have that fluidity. I think Shovel Knight, the way that he controls, the way he moves with his shovel being able to bounce off of objects and strike things in midair. He's a melee focused character, of course, but it just feels good to play as him, and I think instantly Plague Knight feels hard to control, like feels a little bit unwieldy.
First impressions of Plague Knight, I think with both of us, was just this is horrible. Like it's
Yeah.
really difficult. Like we're gonna die a lot. The double jump is absolutely fine, and those double jumps are very short double jumps. I swear.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're getting as much kick out of it.
Yeah, I think I swear one Shovel Knight jump is the same as a Plague Knight double jump. I swear it's the same
Maybe I
distance.
don't know. Yeah.
But it's that third jump that if you decide to release it in a horizontal fashion, there's no control over where it lands. You just have to literally, as a solid 2D platformer would, judge the distance. You'll
I mean, I think
literally.
there's a tiny bit of air control in there, but like, there's so much momentum to it that it's
True,
hard to
yeah.
stop it. Essentially,
It's very easy to control if you just want to shoot up vertically and do an equivalent of just a vertical triple jump.
right, right. But as soon as
Um,
you go horizontally, then you're all about like, if am I going to land on this small platform or not? And it's kind, you have to kind of prejudge it. And when you become acclimatized to the way that he moves and the way he controls, you'll get better at doing that. But certainly in the early stages, you're punished hard because, of course, you fall in a pit. That's you done. You have to go back to the checkpoint. So certainly that first stage, I was in a pub and I was playing that, and it took me like, because I
in a
picked up the
pub.
3DS. Yeah, because we were watching the football or something, and
Oh,
I
you
didn't
weren't.
care. Oh well, I wasn't. I didn't care. So I picked up my 3DS and started playing a Shadows. I was like, yeah, I'll just do this for 20 minutes and bust through, and it took me like 50. So
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I would agree. Most of the first stages and Propeller Knight stage took me about 40 to 50 minutes. Uh,
They're all really long though. That's the interesting thing I find about Shovel Knight is it has the stylings of a game like Mega Man, but when it comes to the length of the stages, they are like 2 or 3 Mega Man style stages in length. Like they
yes.
go on for a long time.
Yeah, they are really great. And like with this Plague of Shadows DLC, there are actual sort of forks in the road at points in the stages where you can go off to it on a fork and like go and get treasure or an extra item. And then there are these weird contraptions that you just jump in at the end of those stages where it'll just shoot you back to like where you need to be to continue the main level that you could play as originally with Shovel Knight, etc. So
Yeah, it does feel like those extra areas are much longer, like there are multiple
yeah,
rooms you have to go through, and it adds like a bit of an explorative element to the game, which is
yeah, and there were
cool.
definitely points where I was just like, I think I've missed a bit, sort of thing. Like it was quite
Yeah.
weird. And that's the one thing about Plague Knight I found was that I was missing far less because the way that you're jumping about, throwing your bombs, the whole stage 70% of the time, whatever, is like just exploding. And
Right, so
so,
it's much more likely for you to just throw a random bomb into a
exactly,
corner that opens up a secret because it's just
precisely.
exploding there
No,
anyway.
no leaf is left unturned
Yeah.
with Plague Knight, and that's really cool. It's just a different way of playing the game. And I mean, the second you get to some of the bosses, you just jump up in the air and you shoot your bombs down on the boss. You're quite safe while you're up in the air and shooting down, unless they have a vertical projectile or something. So it's very unique compared to the way you would fight a boss as Shovel Knight. And often against the vast majority of bosses made those fights a lot easier, which was interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like you could break the game in many ways. I think some of the bosses could have, I mean, it would have taken a lot more work to try and redesign them to fit to Plague Knight. But some of the bosses, like Polar Knight, for example, I just absolutely steamrolled through because he's very much based on the ground. He's quite slow. He walks quite ploddingly, and so if you get in a good corner and
Yeah.
start just hammering him, then you can make very mean work. Whereas there are some bosses where I got very hung up. One of them being
Mm.
Spectre Knight, and I think my problem there was I didn't have a specific upgrade that I should have probably had. Because what you need is like the lob, which
Yeah.
makes your bombs go in an arc above you, and that makes that fight way easier. But I had spent my money on a more expensive upgrade because I thought, the way Shovel Knight operates is you want to spend your money when you're not on a stage because otherwise you lose risking all of it if you have a
Mm.
bad time. So you just want to get rid of that cash as soon as possible. And as a result, I got this really powerful flame exploding thing, but I didn't have the lob, so I was kind of screwed there, and I had to beat him in a much harder way than I think the game probably intended me to do.
And
So there are a couple of pitfalls, I think.
I think with Plague Knight, if you just literally at any point, whether it's a boss or some difficult point in the stage with the other power-ups you can get, and there are so many power-ups in this game, and that's the thing is that if you just stop and think about how best to use your power-ups, it's almost like a puzzle in the way you can just make the rest of the stage incredibly easy if you use the right combination of power-ups, whether that's the way you throw your bombs, the powder you're using, or the power up you're using in terms of your jump and like some of the jumps you unlock later in the game. So it's just completely like I probably played this game in a completely different way to you, Nbz, and that's what I
Yeah,
think is so great about this DLC. Like we just talked about the final few levels off mic about how I was using one method and you were using another, and you're like, oh no, my method's better, and I'm like, no, my method's better, and like I don't think necessarily one method might be better ultimately, but we just sort of experienced the game in a different way. Whereas with Shovel Knight, yes, you can change your secondary weapon, but they're broadly speaking more similar to all the range of weapons that Plague Knight can use, you know?
yeah, absolutely. It is totally choose your poison, for lack of a better term, because you're mixing and changing up. Because the three elements that make up your bomb is like the arc of the throw, the type of kind of weaponry that you're using, and then how quickly it goes off. And so with like 7 or 8 combinations in each of those subsections, you can kind of turn out very differently for each
Mm.
person in terms of the way that they play through that game. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's necessarily a correct or best way, but you acclimatize yourself to one, you get used to it, and then you kind of roll on through. I think I definitely changed my style up a lot more than you did,
Yeah,
but you know that's just the way you are, Bally. You just find something you like and you stick with
I
it.
find what I like and I pummel it home. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. We've talked a lot about mechanics.
Yeah.
I think another great thing about this DLC is the theming and the story of like finding out about Plague Knight and like his relationship with Mona.
Yeah.
And straight away at the start of the game, you're just like you complete the first level. You're like, oh, that's when I get to go to the village. And you go to the village, and then the guard stops you at the village. He's like, hey, you're Plague Knight. You're evil. You're not allowed in the village. And you're like, okay, right. Well, I guess I just jump over him or something, or I blow him up. I get in a boss fight and fight him, and then get in the village. And he's like, nope, he just doesn't let you in the village. And he turns you around. You blow up this house, and then there's a whole underground dungeon. It's effectively an entire separate town with, you know, potions and experiments going off in the background. You find out that like Mona is your kind of accomplice in creating all these bombs and potions and things. And there's just an entirely different array of characters and shops and ways of upgrading your weapons and things. And I just love that idea that, you know, that Yacht Club Games didn't just say, right, well, here we go. I guess we could change this shop in the town and this shop in the town. They just basically said, actually, let's just make an entirely different town. And I thought that was a really nice addition. And the story between those two characters is, I did think, was quite good. Getting towards the end, and like stuff does happen. I thought it was quite endearing. And I should also add that they add on musical themes for these characters and for that whole underworld section, which I just thought added an awful lot to the game.
Yeah, I think Yacht Club certainly went above and beyond when it comes to the presentation here because they could have very easily just said, okay, we made a new character, you added abilities and kind of changed the levels a bit, and you just go through the progression normally and you go to the
Yeah,
village. But they took the attention to detail to say, no, we're going to make this thematically appropriate here, and we're going to have him go to this different place and meet with different characters, but we're also going to tie it in to the original Shovel Knight story where you're
exactly.
going under the village and you see Shovel Knight going above on top of you, and the whole game is presented in the sense that Plague Knight is one step ahead of Shovel Knight, and you do manage to fight him at some point, and it is very funny the way that plays out at the end and how it kind of links into the way Shovel Knight finishes its campaign, and it all fits together, which is really cool.
And no spoilers, but they do add awesome stuff at the end, which is quite cool. And
Yeah.
I would highly recommend if you're struggling through those later stages to just plow on to the end because it's quite a cool ending. And I did enjoy it. And it's like made me really excited about what they're doing because I believe Spectre Knight and King Knight are already, you know, confirmed as the next two that this treatment is going to be done to. Um,
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that in the sense that this was great and it was a good like excuse to play through Shovel Knight again, but I think it could potentially burn itself out because they aren't really changing the base nature of the stages. Um, I think perhaps if it is a yearly release, as you know, Shovel Knight came out about a year ago and Plague Knight is 1 year
Yeah,
later.
it's been a year, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then maybe. But I do feel
But
like
you'd prefer Shovel Knight 2, wouldn't you? It's quite a weird
yeah,
thing they've sort of signed themselves up to.
yeah, and they've kind of also built up a expectation now with how polished Plague Knight is and how
Yeah.
much attention to detail they've put in. Now there is an expectation that the same level of polish and attention to detail will go into both of the other playable knights. So
I mean, if I was in their position right now, I think I would go for one more quest that is like Plague Knight, where you have, a full extra village, an extra level or something, a whole new way of playing the game. I think that's great, and an extra story. Do that for one more, but then I'd just incorporate the next character into Shovel Knight 2 in some way. I think just what if the start of Shovel Knight 2 you could play as Spectre Knight or Shovel Knight, and then they had slightly different quests.
I mean, that would be cool, but I also think that they need to fulfill their Kickstarter rewards.
Well, I
Like, this
think
is promised stuff for people, and I think too often we see people promise things for Kickstarters and not deliver them, and it it is a bad situation they've maybe put themselves in, but I think that they are going to continue through and
see
deliver
they're
that stuff.
gaining all the kudos, but not the actual money, aren't they? It's a weird situation where
Yeah,
they're sort of signed up to this, and everyone's loving Plague of Shadows. Like it is a great game, and but like you said, two more characters might just be too much.
yeah, it might be.
So it'll be interesting to see if they maybe skimp out on it a bit more, which I think everyone would, to be honest, be like, yeah, fair enough, considering what you did for Plague of Shadows, and get on going with Shovel Knight 2, because I'm sure everyone is so excited about what that could be, or if they want to maybe go in a completely different direction, do something else.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they made another campaign that wasn't necessarily as difficult as this one. I think a lot of people will get hung up on Plague of Shadows and quit out early because of how intimidating it starts off as. Like, I think even towards the end, like, there were some moments where I felt that it was more cheap and not necessarily my fault. It was much more an issue with these stages and just Plague Knight's abilities. I don't think I ever really felt that way with the original Shovel Knight. I just think that some of the stuff wasn't conducive to him, and yet they were kind of beholden to the stages they'd already made because they can't just go ahead and make a bunch more. But
Hmm.
you know, it's a tough game. So,
Yeah, it will be intriguing to see what they do in the future, but whatever they do, super excited for what Yacht Club Games do next.
yeah. Before we move on, we can talk about the challenge mode because that's
Yes.
in there as well. How much of that have you played, by?
I've only completed the first three, and that is
Okay.
something I need to go back to, because it's really, really hard. Like
Yes.
it is really, really hard. And they're just so. I love the way that they've just taken so many elements out of Shovel Knight and just made it hard. So like maybe, oh, you can't swing your shovel, or your life is reduced, or here's
Yeah.
an overabundance of enemies coming at you, and that kind of thing. And it's just really kind of forcing you to play the game in different ways, which I think is
Yes.
nice. And it's in little bite-sized chunks. So even if you're having the most hellish of times, it's only lasting like a minute, and then you can move on to the next challenge or whatever.
Yeah, they're really cool, and they also unlock a bunch of challenges for Plague Knight if you beat the main campaign.
Oh,
So not only do you have 26
didn't know
Shovel
that.
Knight based ones, Plague Knight gets his own as well. So there's
Another
quite a lot of
26?
challenges. Yes, they are all
Goodness
based
sake.
around him. Yeah.
Shovel
so-
Knight, Shovel Knight, Yacht Club Games. You need to like make some money.
Yeah, stop giving us all this awesome stuff for free. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I've been playing. I haven't. I mean, I've been playing other stuff. I've mainly been dipping into Mario Maker in terms of just seeing what people are saying about my levels because I haven't been playing much. Oh, I will say that I do check in with certain levels now and again. Dan Reichert made a level called Sacrificing Yoshis. and it is sadistic. It is like really fucking evil, and there's also a glitch in the level, which is weird because I didn't think that Mario Maker would have glitches, but there is a point at which if you jump onto this area in a certain way, which is kind of the easiest way to get there, 2 Yoshi eggs will spawn at the same time, and one of them you need to go forward. So if it spawns at the same time and you go on one Yoshi and try and jump up to the top, it turns into a mushroom. The Yoshi just turns into a mushroom and you can't get the thing and you can't move on. So it kind of just breaks the level, which is a little fucked.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and I'm not sure what causes that, but you have to basically jump on 2 floating dry bones as opposed to jumping on 1 floating dry bones, which will then make them both hatch in a certain angle that allows you to keep both of them alive, which is just the weirdest thing. And I had to learn about that from just the Miiverse comments that were there, because I was getting to that point every time and being like, this level is broken, it's literally glitched out and I can't beat it. But I did manage to eventually get there and figure it out and finish that level, which is, oh man, it's hellish. But it's the sort of thing with Mario Maker where you find a level that someone you know has created and you just want to beat it. Like, that's all you want to do in the world. So much focus is placed on it, and before you know it, like, an hour has been spent on a single level.
Yeah.
Which is great in many ways. Like, I enjoy the 100 Mario challenge, but I think I get way more satisfaction out of going to someone like Dan Riker and being like, right, Dan, I'm going to beat this thing that you made. You're not going to defeat me. I will take you on. And finishing it and having that glory. So Mario Maker continues to be fantastic. I haven't made any more stages, but that will happen in the future. And yeah, I've been playing Metal Gear Solid 5, which I haven't talked about at all, but it's fucking amazing, and I'll probably talk about it when I actually beat the game. But yeah, so it's pretty much all the things we've been playing. It's gonna end it for this section, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break with our top 50 games of all time. Don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Alright everyone, welcome back to the 50th episode of this Nintendo Life. We're here, and it's time to discuss the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the 50 elements, or elephants in the room.
Elements.
Yeah. Oh, there are elements at play.
The official TNL top 50 games of all time.
Yeah, so let's explain this list a little bit before we dive into it. We're going to do this first section where we'll discuss number 50 down to number 15. And we've kind of laid that out ourselves. We had a long discussion about it yesterday where many things were said and
deals were done.
Yeah, deals were done, underhanded, under the table.
But our friendship stayed true.
Well, you think.
Yeah, just
wait until the end of this episode. It could get nasty. But yeah, so we've kind of ordered those. I'm going to run through those first of all and talk about them a little bit. We're not going to, spend too much time on each one, but we're going to kind of pace our way through the games. And yeah, and this is more of a list of games that if today we were sat down in a room and said you have to play 50 games, what are the games that you would play? These are the ones we would choose. So there's nothing with kind of nostalgic elements to it in here. I mean, some of the
No.
stuff does have that, but it's also because the game stands up as a really solid experience.
Yes.
So there's no Animal Crossing Wild World in here. There's no Pokemon Gold and Silver or Diamond or anything like that. So
The good old Pokemon stadiums,
yeah, exactly. So
Wii Sports, those kind of things.
those we felt would fit better on a different sort of list, on kind of a more personal, emotionally based top 10, where there's less kind of reason involved. There's emotion in this one, but
We should add, these are all games on Nintendo systems.
yes, they're all Nintendo. They're not necessarily all made by Nintendo, but they
No.
all exist on Nintendo systems. So yeah,
And we also had the fun idea that, you know, this list is so official, so binding, that it'd be a bit of fun, because there's many games on this list that I've not played, and likewise there's many games on the list that Nbz hasn't played. So we sort of said maybe this could be like a nice sort of bridging the gap, like this almost the official TNL constitution, where we sort of say, right, we both have to try these games for an hour at least each, so that we kind of open up our minds to different gaming experiences, to games that we've both agreed we really love, and just, you know, give them a go.
yeah. So the 1 hour rule will be instituted, and we have to do it by this time next year.
By this time, I'd say the deadline. You want to make it next year?
I don't know. We could say episode 100.
I was going to say episode 100 would be quite
Yeah.
a good target, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
And we can also take this list as like, these are 50 games that you should probably play, like more of a kind of a recommendation
Definitely.
list, I guess. So.
And we've talked about the vast majority of these games on the podcast already,
Yes.
so I'm sure
Yeah.
there'll be some classics in there.
Some familiar faces, we should say. So yeah, let's kick it off. Bally, what is it? Number 50.
Number 50 this was inserted by you. It's Dragon Quest IX on the Nintendo DS.
Yes, Dragon Quest IX is a fantastic JRPG. It's the only Dragon Quest I've played, so I don't really have much context for the other ones, but it really makes me want to play a lot of others in the series. It's very kind of formulaic. It's very traditional Japanese RPG, but it's got a wonderful art style to it. The artist, I believe, is Akira Toriyama, who is behind Dragon Ball Z, so you will be very familiar with the stuff he draws. And yeah, it's the first Dragon Quest game where there aren't random battles, so you can run around the map and see the enemies that are there. And if you want to, you know, go in for a fight, then you can. If you don't, just run away, which is a nice refinement to that system. It's a really cool story, very charming, very bright and colourful. And yeah, Bally, you should play an hour of this game at least at some point, which we're going to do.
I will.
So yeah.
Number 49 is, we kind of cheated on this one, but we thought it was fair. We put the two Gunman Clives together, so it's Gunman Clive 1 and 2.
Yeah, they do exist on the Wii U as an HD collection,
Absolutely.
1 and 2. Bally, what are your thoughts on Gunman Clive 1 and 2?
I played both of them back to back earlier this year. Really great little game, so cheap, so easy to pick up and play. Great art style. That's a really cool thing about this game, and it's just such a slick. The gaming mechanics are so slick. You know, it's the traditional Mega Man style of action platformer. You've got your gun, you're jumping around defeating enemies, but it's just that idea brought forward to modern times and put into a very short, fast-paced, extremely slick, like I said, experience we played it on 3DS.
Yeah, it's also got a great use of 3D on that system. Like one of the best uses of 3D I've seen in any 3DS game. So fits nicely. Number 49.
Number 48 is Bit Trip Runner 2. A rhythm platformer close to both our hearts. It's just that word again is going to keep coming up as slick. It's really well put together, this game. It is the way that the music interacts with the actions on screen. It probably does that better than almost any other game I can think of. And
yeah, there aren't many which mix that idea of kind of rhythmic platforming.
No.
There's of course the sections in Rayman Legends which do it very well, but those are only select levels. This is an entire game built around that premise. So
Number 47 is Mario Kart Double Dash. Actually, my favourite Mario Kart of all time. I promise this isn't a nostalgia pick. I absolutely love this game. I've had so many great times with this game, and it's a formula of two racers on one kart that I pray Nintendo go back to, because this game really is unique in the Mario Kart series. And
I will say the one thing about Double Dash is that it dared to be bold, it dared to do something different, and I think that a lot of Mario Karts could learn from that.
and
So
how often can you say that about Mario Kart? Like it's been so predictable in so many ways up to this point,
yes,
and this really stands out in so many good ways.
yes, it does.
Number 46 is Prince of Persia: Sands of Time on the Nintendo GameCube.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It was up for RFN's Game of the Decade when they did that back in 2010, and back then I hadn't played it, and I was very interested in it, and I played it last year. And this is really, like, it's one of those games that is so ahead of its time, and it's a game in which you can see the DNA of so many things that came after it, such as the entire Assassin's Creed series seems to draw on so much of what Prince of Persia laid down with Sands of Time. It has the amazing mechanic of rewinding and being able to go back and retry your actions, which lots of games kind of used after the fact. And though maybe it doesn't hold up super well mechanically, it's really impressive on a technical level, and it's still really fun to play now, which is why it's on here. Like, maybe it could have been more of a nostalgia pick, but I only played it last year, so I don't think I can kind of count it in that sense. I think it's just a super solid
held up well.
action game. Yeah, it did, so yeah.
Number 45 is F-Zero Maximum Velocity on the Game Boy Advance. I bought this game with... it was one of the first games on the Game Boy Advance, I believe. I absolutely loved it back then, and I've played it to death then and on the Ambassador program. It's the best handheld F-Zero, because unfortunately there's never been an F-Zero on DS or 3DS, and if you go back all the way to this one, it still holds up really well. Absolutely can't get enough of this game. It's a tough game, but it rewards skill, and it's a skill that you can develop and becomes more rewarding as you get better, and that's just like how F-Zero should be. So that's number 45, F-Zero Maximum Velocity.
And it's a little high in this list, I have to say, but
Bally
was so passionate about
this
game that it remains at 45 above all these other games that we've already talked about.
Number 44 is Rayman Origins on
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because I played Rayman Origins on Steam, so I technically never played it on a Nintendo platform. But for me, it stands above Legends because of that first impression. The impact it made on me was so huge because I wasn't really expecting it. I'd, seen video footage of it and I'd heard people talk about how great it was, but it wasn't until I sat down and played Origins for the first time that I really understood, holy shit, Ubisoft have done a fantastic job here in taking the platformer and modernizing it in a way that feels fresh and really interesting artistically and just excellently designed. Rayman Origins is amazing in terms of its soundtrack, in terms of its visuals, and in terms of, hey, we can give you a challenging section, and we're not going to give you bollocks live systems, which means you have to continuously game over. You just restart checkpoints, and you go and take on the challenges which they lay out for you. So that's why I put Rayman Origins here. It's on Wii, it's on 3DS, it's not on Wii U, but Legends is, and I think that Origins, for me, still stands above Legends. So.
Number 43 is Soul Calibur 2. Probably our favourite, weapons fighter of all time.
I guess our favourite traditional fighting game,
yes.
Right? Yeah, it's a game that still is good today, and yes, this could have been another nostalgia pick, but I played it recently, or I played Soul Calibur 4 with my sister recently, but the Soul Calibur series still holds up for me in so many ways. I love the weapon variety that you can have. I love those joke weapons. I think Soul Calibur 2 also has the best single-player system of any of them, with the Weapon Master mode, where you're going across the map and doing specific challenges that are based around, guard breaking, or knocking people off the edge, or going through a dungeon and fighting multiple people to get to a boss. It's really well laid out, and it also has cameos from very interesting folk from Nintendo platforms, i.e. Link, who has a very cool roster of weapons in his lineup. So yeah, Soul Calibur 2 is excellent.
At number 42 is Pilot Wings Resort for the 3DS. I bought this. We both bought this game with the launch of the 3DS. I definitely took to it more than you did, Nbz, but
You did, yeah.
I got a bit carried away with this one. I just absolutely loved the mission mode and completed every single mission with a perfect score. It took a while. I only completed all those missions on perfect when I picked up my new 3DS, but I'm so glad I did go back to that game because I just think the mechanics of a flying sim like this game are so solid, and I just really hope I really do need to try Pilot Wing 64, and I think they set out a good framework as to how they could do another Pilot Wings game in the future, either on Wii U or NX or whatever. It's a solid game in my mind.
Yeah.
And then number 41 is Super Monkey Ball 2 on the GameCube.
Yeah, there has to be a Monkey Ball game in here somewhere for me. It's a fantastic series, if only short-lived in the good ones. By which I mean the Wii version and the DS version, GBA, and anything kind of past the original two doesn't really hold a candle to what those games originally started as. You know, the first two Monkey Balls are exceptionally fun games. They are so well designed and they are brutal in terms of difficulty, but so satisfying when you finally figure it out and you finally get a hold on the mechanics. Monkey Ball 2 is the one that I own. I know, Bally, that you don't own either of them, but you have played them extensively at my house and everything, and I think you can agree that
absolutely
this is
such
worthy.
a simple mechanic but such a fun game at the same time. It's just really well done, really well put together, and it was kind of the unexpected hero on the launch of the GameCube.
Yes, it was.
Number 40 is VVV. How many V's am I going to say? VVVVV.
There are 6 V's, Bally. There are 6.
V. Oh, I missed one. There we go. V.
Yeah, there you go. So I threw this one in here. Bally, you have yet to play this game, but I think when you do, you will understand why I love it so much. Not only is it taking a very simple concept of gravity switching and presenting you with ample platforming challenges, but VVVVVV has one of the best soundtracks in any game. There is a particular rock remix on YouTube that I listen to quite often. It's one of the rare exceptions of me listening to kind of versions and covers of game music, because the soundtrack to this game is fucking phenomenal. It does 8-bit music in a way that it's only really rivaled by something like Shovel Knight, and I think that when you finally pick this up, that will stand out to you, Bally, and you will be humming these tunes for a very long time. So
great.
It's a great game.
Number 39 is Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS.
And you may be wondering, how did Bally let Mario Kart 7 get on this list? The reason is because Mario Kart 7 is my favourite Mario Kart. It, for me, controls the most tightly. It has the best variety of courses. It has the 3D, which I think enhances the game in many aspects and makes it more of an immersive experience. And the fact that I like it so much makes a big difference, because, you know me...
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's the first Mario Kart that we actually had, a really tight head-to-head racing record.
Yeah, it was pretty much 50-50 when it came to Mario Kart 7, as opposed to when we played on DS, where I'd win maybe 1 out of every 20 races. Mario Kart 7 kind of leveled the playing field, and it made it so that I could compete with Bally, and it was more of a fun experience. And yeah, I really enjoy this game, and it's one of those games that I would take to a desert island and be perfectly happy playing for a very long time. So that's why it's up here at number 39.
Number 38 is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yes, a classic for many people. For me, I really like Ocarina of Time, and again, if this was a nostalgia list, it would likely be much higher. But I think with time and distance, looking back on it, the dungeons are exceptional. They stand out to me greatly, but it seems a little bit antiquated in other aspects, though it still, holds up excellently. And we have other Zeldas on this list, but this is the first one that we're going to be talking about. So.
Yeah, it has issues, but for what it did, it is a phenomenal game, and it does the phenomenal parts do hold up. Like you said, the dungeons, exploring an open world. It's a fantastic open world. Hyrule Field still feels amazing. I just completed this game, and yeah, right up there. Love it. Number 37 is Codename Steam.
A very recent entry into my favorite games list. Codename Steam, as I talked about last week, is just so much fun. And it's very flawed. I do agree on many points that people make that there are huge glaring issues with this game, but when it comes down to the pure mechanics and the way it's set out and the tenseness, I think that's, for me, what is the greatest aspect of Codename Steam is that kind of struggle at the end where you're almost making it and your guys are on the lowest amount of health possible and you need to get past this certain area, and when you do, the feeling of elation is enormous because those situations it creates are so tense.
Number 36 is Kirby Canvas Curse on the DS. We've both played this one. I probably liked it a bit more than you, Nbz. This is my favorite game on DS. It's for a number of reasons. It utilizes the hardware of the DS better than almost any other game, I would say. And on top of that, it just produces a really great new look on the way you 2D platform. It's got all the charm a Kirby game always has. But with that new play style, it was just blew me away. And it's a game I would happily go back to. Absolutely love Kirby Canvas Curse. I know you're a little bit soured by Rainbow Curse, Nbz.
Yeah, but I think I can still appreciate Canvas Curse, especially in the sense that this is a game that I borrowed from you and beat over the course of a weekend in an era when I wasn't beating games a lot. Like, I was playing a lot of games, but I wasn't getting to the end of them. Neither of us were. And Kirby Canvas Curse kind of stands out as a game that I went the whole way through and finished and was satisfied with. And yeah, it kind of speaks to how good of an experience it is that it, made me want to go that distance. So
number 35 is Super Mario Sunshine on the Nintendo GameCube. This is a game that was my first proper 3D platformer, really. And my first Mario platformer, definitely. It turns that formula on its head. It introduces FLUDD. It's probably the hardest Mario 3D platformer in existence. I have still not beaten this game. This is a game I have to get back to. I really hope there is a remake of this game because I think it is a beautiful game. It's a really unique. The destination of Al Delfino is a great setting for this game, and I just love all the new stuff it does to Mario, and everything since has been more formulaic, more without FLUDD, obviously. And I'd like to see Nintendo go back to trying something that's as unique and out there as what they did with FLUDD and Super Mario Sunshine.
It's a game that I have yet to play, and I have a lot of experience of watching you play it.
Watching me fail play it, like this game is so hard.
It is difficult, but it's one of those games that I am really desiring an HD remake for. Like, there are a lot of elements in Sunshine that could do with improving, and I think that just like Wind Waker did for me with the HD version, Sunshine could potentially be very high up my own personal list if they do a good job in remaking it. So here's hoping.
Number 34 is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Now, if this was a nostalgia list, Bally, this would be number one. Of course it would be. It has to be. It's the legendary game of my past, the Let's Play for which is going 5 years strong. Twilight Princess, though, I still think has the best dungeons in any Zelda. They are long, they are complex, they are varied and interesting and have different items that are so unique and never before seen in any Zelda before or after. And because of that, they are so rewarding to complete. And they have so many interesting hidden areas and secrets, and they're just well designed. Twilight Princess is the epitome of the Zelda dungeon experience. If Ocarina of Time was kind of the building blocks, Twilight Princess was the refinement for me.
Yes.
And I think it should be lauded for that. Maybe doesn't have the most memorable overworld. It maybe is a little dark in places and could be argued that one of the less pretty Zeldas. It's not a great looker as Twilight Princess, but when it comes down to the core of what Zelda is, the dungeons, it does it better than almost any other for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely love this game. The dungeons, I would also agree, are right up there with the best Zelda dungeons out there. And yes, it is a dark game, but I think along with how dark the game is, it has a really interesting story, probably more so than most 3D Zeldas. So yeah,
Yeah.
I big fan. Number 33 is Luigi's Mansion 2 on the 3DS.
What a great game. What a great game that kind of floored me in a way that I didn't imagine it would. I didn't play the original Luigi's Mansion, and so I didn't have that great expectations for this, but they took the formula of the original and kind of bite-sized it down to the 3DS, broke it into missions, and created an almost point-and-click adventure-style game with Luigi, which is really interesting because it's not super action focused. A lot of the bosses don't necessarily require pure skill in terms of movement and
Yeah,
shooting around. It's much
quite
more,
puzzle based.
yeah, it's much more of a logic and a thinking man's game, which I do appreciate, and I think it also has excellent use of the 3D on 3DS.
Yeah, I completely agree that the 3D looks incredible with this game. There's so many layers of spiders and dust and
Yes,
different
yeah.
environments to explore, and exploration is a really big part of this game. Even though it's split into missions, there's a real emphasis on clearing out a room, or even before the room's cleared out, just to explore what's going on, what your vacuum cleaner can suck on, and things like that. There is to discover. So much treasure to discover and things like that. Very different from the first game, of which I've played some, but really enjoyed this one. Number 32 is WarioWare Twisted on the Game Boy Advance.
We had to have a WarioWare in here, Bally. It's one of those
the
series that
best.
we've
It's
both
the best.
really enjoyed, and Twisted does kind of stand up as the epitome. It takes what was great about the original and quite literally turns it on its head. The idea of using the motion sensor without having issues of, for example, the 3DS and losing the 3D, or having issues of the Wii remote and having it point correctly at the sensor bar. It just functions as it should. And it also has a really great variety of little toy box items that you can unlock, which are all really unique and different and use the system in crazy ways. And that's like one of the most fun aspects of it, is like unlocking those and see what new stuff you get out of the not a pachinko machine, but it's like it's one of those machines.
Roulette or something. Yeah.
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 So
No, this game is, I agree, the best WarioWare game. It's got the most unique mini games, and like you said, the toy box is just full of so many different experiences. Really taking a simple formula and changing it up massively. And I think a lot of the games on this list, they take formulas and change them up, and this game probably does it better than almost all of them. I'd love them to return to some sort of mechanic like this because it worked so well for this game.
indeed.
Number 31 is Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS.
Super Mario 3D Land is the second best 3D Mario game, Bally. I like it more than the original Galaxy. I think Galaxy 2 probably stands up as a better game, but for me, 3D Land did everything it did impeccably well, and unlike its successor, 3D World, it didn't borrow that much from the Galaxy games. Yes, this is an EAD Tokyo joint, but I think 3D Land succeeded in being the best use, and still, to date, the best use of the Nintendo 3DS's stereoscopic effect. It created rooms in which you needed that perspective in order to get through them. It had levels that were short and bite-sized and perfectly suited for a handheld, and it had such a great experience of just moving through world to world without having to run around a spaceship like in Galaxy or do anything. It was very much a simple setup focused on the pure leveling and the platforming, and I think for many reasons it's so replayable, it's so much fun, it is an incredible game.
And
3D Land stands up for me.
And there was a great return of, like the Tanuki suit and introducing the flagpoles into a 3D Mario. I think that's just a really cool idea. And obviously 3D World developed on many of the ideas, but the original handheld version just suited that style so well.
It did.
I had to fight for this one. Number 30. Number 30, Wave Race Blue Storm on the GameCube. This game launched with the GameCube, and in terms of a good-looking, realistic racer on the GameCube, I think there were few games that were as awesome as this game at the time, and I do believe it holds up well. It is a really, really challenging game. I've not played the N64 original, but in terms of a game that says, right, you're going to have to weave through all these buoys, and there's no let up, and you get disqualified if you miss 5, and that's that. This is one of the most challenging racing games I've ever played, a lot like F-Zero actually. And I think the polish Nintendo put on this game, in both the way it looks, the way it plays, the way it handles, it works so well on the GameCube, especially with the shoulder triggers that are so crucial to the maneuvering in this game. It's one of my top racing games of all time, and I really love it.
Yeah, I was looking at this list and I was like, why is this here, Bally? Why is Wave Race
Because every time we've played it together, you end up going the wrong way or going backwards or disqualified, and it's always a brutal experience. But
for me, it's one of the most frustrating things I've played in my life.
It's very challenging, I will not deny. It takes an awful lot of getting used to.
But I think for you, that's something that you like to conquer. Like, you love,
absolutely.
In terms of racing games, at least, you love conquering that challenge, that difficulty, and that's why you love F-Zero and Wave Race so much.
And yeah, it's so similar, like you said, to F-Zero in that aspect. Number 29 is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
I love Skyward Sword, Bally. I think Skyward Sword is the Mario 64 of Zelda games, and I mean that in a way that you probably aren't thinking about. Not in the sense that it was this revolutionary crazy thing, but in the sense that its structure is such that it feels like you're jumping into paintings, because there isn't this cohesive world below. You can't go between the areas, and I think a lot of people had that criticism of it, but the idea of having this lovely, nice hub in the sky where you can go and do side quests and explore the islands and find these gratitude crystals and bring them back to that guy who's under the house and you want to turn him back into a human. The way the game is structured for me is so satisfying because it allows you to go down into the world, do the Zelda stuff, and then take a break, relax, chill out in Skyloft, and do a couple of side quests, and open up a new area in Skyloft because of a new item you just got, and find the cube in the sky that you activated from being below. It also has one of the most intricate combat systems in any video game. Learning that and getting good at that is one of the most satisfying things I have ever done in my experience as a gamer. Skyward Sword's controls are a sticking point for many people, but for me they are the epitome of that game. They are what make it so great because it turns combat not into a button mashing fest, but into a strategic, well thought out and very logical affair. So for me, Skyward Sword, one of my favourite Zelda games, and I know that Bally, you had problems with it and you struggled through it, which is probably why you don't rate it as highly, but I really like Skyward Sword.
My favourite aspect of this game was the unique way in which you could use multiple items in different ways, in different dungeons, in different experiences. I absolutely loved that, and the way you go through dungeons is so unique in this game. Yes, I definitely did struggle with a lot of the motion controls, but I still enjoyed the motion controls. It was challenging. I really struggled on many bosses. I'd love to give this game another go one day and try and get a better grip of the motion controls and have a smoother experience, because it is a really strong game. Number 28 is Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS.
And I think this is one of those cases where if you had played this, Bally, it may have ended up higher on the list, but without context, I decided that yes, this is probably a good place for Fire Emblem Awakening. Fire Emblem Awakening is the Ocarina of Time of Fire Emblem games, and kind of contrary to what I just said about Skyward Sword being the Mario 64 of Zelda games, Fire Emblem is the Ocarina in the sense that it is the game that made this series huge. You know, it's the one that kind of rocketed it into the stratosphere and became mainstream and is appreciated for so many aspects, because this game is just enormous in terms of scope and in terms of the different things you can do. It's kind of endless because the system of having children and matching up people and making that relationship stuff matter in a way that it didn't matter as much in previous entries in the series creates an experience that is kind of everlasting. You can match up as many people as you like, have different abilities. The skill stuff is insanely complicated. The amount of DLC for this game is out of this world. The story is excellent. It's visually beautiful. It is an incredible experience all around. And while it may not be my favorite Fire Emblem, I think it might be the best if we look at them objectively. So, yeah.
Yeah, gonna just about to play this one. It's not gonna make the cut this time, but next list we do, it could feature higher.
It could do.
From one awakening to another, number
Yes.
27 is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
Let's be honest, Bal, the only reason it's here is because we wanted to have those two games back to back because they're both called Awakening.
Precisely. It's not to do with how good they are. No, yeah. I picked this up in a sale. Didn't know what to expect. So many people before I'd played this had said what an incredible game this was. And I looked at screenshots and gameplay, and it does not look like it ages well at all, just from looking at it. But the second you play it and you explore that world and you explore the dungeons, you get involved in the mini quests and the way that world functions and operates. I think it is a really unique Zelda, and one of my favorites. It's so different to a game like Link to the Past in the way you get from one dungeon to another. It's not simple. It's a very, very challenging game at points. I definitely did need some save states, but the way it interacts with other Nintendo franchises, there's there's Mario, Kirby, Chain Chomps, all this sort of thing. The way they're intrinsically linked throughout the story is really interesting, and it's a really cool Zelda. It's a really interesting story. I'd highly recommend it.
Well, I'm going to play it, I guess, because it's on the list. So
Yeah.
we'll
It's worth it. Number 26 is quite a new one. Super Mario Maker on the Wii U.
Yeah, and I think this is the only 2D Mario on this list.
Blasphemy.
For good reason, because we don't really like 2D Mario on this podcast.
No.
Super Mario Maker is fucking wonderful. It is just such a brilliant experience in so many ways. I think that this could move higher in the list later down the line if Nintendo come back to it and patch it and make the search options better and all that stuff. But currently, as it is, the package of what Super Mario Maker delivers is kind of incomparable to any other creation tool that has ever been put out into the world.
Yeah, the way Nintendo help you in teaching you how all the parts work, help you make the levels, the ease with which you can upload those levels, share the levels, although there are some issues. It's incredible. It's the 99.1% ratio was completely smashed on its head, turned on its head, and that's so great to see, because it's all about the creativity, and it's all the fans, I'm sure, are just making, well, it's officially over 1 million stages already created, which is unbelievable.
Yes, indeed. Good stuff.
Number 25 is Wario Land: The Shake Dimension.
This is my favourite Nintendo 2D platformer of all time. Wario Land: The Shake Dimension is not only one of the most beautiful games that I've ever seen in my life, but it also subverts so many areas of what a platformer should be and does so many interesting things with the Wii specific controls. And what I mean by that is that there's no shake gimmicks in here. Funnily enough, yes, you do shake the Wii remote quite a bit in terms of, like, you'll go up to coin bags and shake the living hell out of them to get coins out of them, but that's not necessarily what the game is focused around. It does so many different things with the tilt mechanics that the Wii remote can take a hold of, and it just plays exceptionally well. As I said before, that art style it feels like a cartoon. Like, it's a Wii game, and it's not an HD, but it's still one of the best looking things I've ever seen. It's just, the animation on Wario is so smooth, and it has so many incredible nuances to it. This game is fantastic. So much fun, so creative, and really needs to be played by everyone. It's excellent, really excellent.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this before the year's out, so I really look forward to it.
Yes.
Number 24 is F-Zero GX on the Nintendo GameCube. This is my favorite Nintendo racer of all time, and I should also say that Sega played a big role in its development. It is like Wave Race, it's incredibly difficult, really hard. There's a heavy use of the shoulder buttons with the GameCube pad again, but it's also got the most challenging story mode I might have seen in any game ever. Easily any racer I've played in terms of a story mode. It's the way that you unlock each level, the way that you have to replay certain story mode missions in order to get more currency to unlock future missions is just such a tough but fair way of doing things. And I think it is maybe going a bit far to say that this game can appeal to everyone, because I don't think it can. I think it's really gone out of its way to appeal to a real racing hardcore who want a game that is incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging, but also very rewarding. I'd also have to say that it visually looks like it's in HD, even though it's not. The
I mean,
frame
it
rate
runs at
is
60 frames a second, and
exactly.
it is gorgeous.
And even from someone like yourself, Nbz, who's not an F-Zero fan, you can see that it's an incredibly good-looking game, incredibly fast-paced.
I can appreciate how technically adept F-Zero
Yes.
GX is. It is one of the most impressive GameCube games ever made, on a technical level, absolutely.
And I mean, it's criminal that there's not been another F-Zero game since this one. So I really hope something can come in the near future, because a game like this needs to come about again. F-Zero GX is so sweet. Number 23 is Phoenix Wright 3. What's the full title of this one?
It is Trials and
Trials
Tribulations.
and Tribulations.
So I had a couple of choices of what Phoenix Wright game I could put on here. I was thinking maybe it could be Leighton vs. Wright, which I really loved. Dual Destinies was excellent last year. The original Phoenix Wright is just tremendous, and perhaps on a nostalgia list that would win out. But for me, the third Phoenix Wright game is the culmination, and really, you have to view this game in the perspective of the two that came before it. Because really, if you haven't played those, then I wouldn't recommend you play Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations. You need to have experienced the full spectrum of what Shu Takumi has laid forward in his writing. The way this game wraps up is perhaps one of the most insanely impressive things I have ever seen in any game. It takes elements from the first and second game, explains them, fits things into this timeline which spans like 30 or 40 years, and has it all make kind of logical sense while also sprinkling in that coveted craziness that Phoenix Wright is known for. The story is exceptional. The gameplay remains very solid. Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations is pretty much a masterpiece in terms of this genre. And if you've never played any of these games, play all of them and get to the third one and experience the gravitas, is what I say.
Number 22 is Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo.
Super Metroid is hailed as a classic by many, and I still think, me personally, that Metroid Fusion is a superior game, and that's not nostalgia speaking. That's just for me, from a technical level, in terms of how solid the mechanics are, it is a preferred experience. But Super Metroid really pioneered in terms of exploration, and in terms of atmosphere, and in terms of upgrades and all that stuff. And I think, Bally, for you, Super Metroid stands above Fusion.
Yes, it was the first 2D Metroid I think I played. I can't even remember now.
No, you played Fusion
Did
first.
I play it first? Okay.
Yes, you did.
It's so incredible that this game came out in the early 90s when you think about how much it changed gaming in a way. The way that you're exploring this world and you're delving deeper and deeper into the planet Zebes. And like you said, you're getting those unlockables. It's traditional Metroid. It's traditional this is how this tradition almost started in a way of defeating those incredibly tough bosses that are kind of sprawled out across this world and finding out how to reach them, how to access them. All the secret upgrades with the bombs, the missiles, that kind of thing. There's so many things to explore in this game where the gameplay time can range so drastically based on how thoroughly you decide to explore that world. It's incredibly tough at points. Some of the most tough boss fights I've ever faced in any game.
Somewhat by your own ineptitude in terms of not getting enough energy tanks.
But such an interesting story and like an interesting ending to what is one of the most sort of iconic Metroid games of all time. It's always going to be quite an important game to me. So yeah, Super Metroid, such a classic. Number 21 is Mega Man 2 on the NES.
I think this should be way higher, but as it happens, it's sitting here. Mega Man 2 it's an all-time classic. It's a lesson in game design. It's a tour de force in mechanics. It is so tight and so well put together and has memorable stages and memorable bosses and an incredible level of difficulty, but also a difficulty that doesn't feel unfair. When it comes to something like Mega Man 3, which I think is excellent, but also a little bit too hard, I think Mega Man 2 straddles the line aptly enough to the point where you can get through it if you try hard enough, and if you memorize those patterns, and if you get it all down. It's just excellent in every sense of the word, and if Bally wasn't here, it would be much higher on this list, I think.
I still love it. It's one of the very few NES games I really have enjoyed. It's tough. I definitely found some parts a little more unfair than you suggested. But yeah, it's such a solid action platformer. Number 20 is Trine 2.
What a fantastic game. Trine 2... It makes you feel like you can solve anything in your own unique way. The way that the physics system is implemented in that game, you can put together like this weird contraption of 3 boxes and a platform and have it hanging off a thing while also swinging, and the way in which that is all put together most of the time is completely unique to however anyone else has attempted to solve that puzzle. And that kind of emergent gameplay is why this stands out to me.
Yeah, I personally absolutely love the fantasy setting and the musical soundtrack. It's that combined with this kind of mystical way of almost solving any puzzle any way you want to. Is just so unique in a 2D puzzle platformer, and it's not like anything I've ever played before it. So, real favorite for me. Number 19, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I've talked an awful lot on this podcast about this game, so I'm not.
Oh, have you? I didn't notice.
I'm not gonna go too far into depth, but this is my favorite 2D platform of all time, probably. It's really, really, it combines the 2D with 3D in a way I absolutely love. The environments, the soundtrack. I've gone on about soundtracks, but David Wise and this soundtrack is something I will listen to hours on end away from the video game entirely. But this game, it's incredibly tough. It's incredibly colorful, incredibly bright, and it mixes up a couple of new mechanics from the other Donkey Kong Country games without going off the script. It's still a really solid Donkey Kong Country game, and I just love the way DK handles. Absolutely love this game. Number 18 is Bayonetta 2.
Bayonetta 2 is probably a video game that feels the best to play that I have ever played in my life, if I were to be a non-English speaking person, because the way I put that sentence together was horrendous, but you get my meaning. Bayonetta 2 feels like you are a god when you are pressing those buttons and getting the visual feedback of the insanity that is happening on your screen. It feels like nothing else in the world. Stringing together combos, using your gun to make sure that it sticks and that you don't lose it. flying through the fucking sky while a giant dragon chases you, and there are cherubs to your right and fucking devils to your left, and you are smashing them all in the face with fucking chain chomps for legs, that is when you know that a video game has become ridiculous and also incredibly fun. Bayonetta 2 is something that may be a little niche in terms of genre, but opens it up to a wider audience, I feel, and it's one of those spectacle fighters that I think anyone can pick up and just have fun with. It's just fun. Pure fun.
Number 17 is Super Mario Galaxy.
The original. I think it's very hard to overstate the impact that this had on both of us personally when we first played it. Now, in hindsight, I think we can both agree that Galaxy 2 is a superior game, but that first experience with the original Galaxy is a mind-blowing one, and one that I don't think many games have been able to reproduce for us. Like, as folk who grew up not necessarily playing Mario 64 when it came out and not having the context of 2D to 3D, the shift to Galaxy was kind of that magnitude for us, I think.
It's really unique, but it's also incredibly accessible. We've already talked about Mario Sunshine, which I don't think is as accessible just because it's so hard. This game,
Yes.
while it's hard in places, in general isn't overly challenging, I believe. I think that's a really, really solid platformer at the same time as not being too unfair. And the way the planets interact, the gravitational pools, the way that you defeat certain enemies is so different, so unique. And on top of that, this game might as well be in HD. It's another game that looks incredible on the Wii. They really pushed the art right up to the max, and it really rewards great art design because some of the textures and things like that just hold up so well with this game. And number 16 is Pikmin 3. So this is another game that I've talked about an awful lot on this podcast, but Pikmin 3 is the quintessential Pikmin. It's such an improvement on Pikmin 2, and that's partly to do with the fact that there was such a large gap, but Pikmin in HD is a match made in heaven. Like, this game, the idea of Pikmin having so many small units on screen interacting with the environment looks so much better, so much more lush in HD, and some of the environments, the water, the autumnal effects, the jungles, the forests, they all look so nice in this game. There's some really unique bosses with new Pikmin, new ideas, new ways of defeating enemies. You can now split your party up into 3. There's a whole mission mode, challenge mode, as well as the story mode, cooperative play versus play. There's so much in this game, and it's just an incredible kind of real-time strategy sort of game, with a nice Nintendo polish, a nice Nintendo shine over the whole thing. Absolutely can't say enough good things about Pikmin 3. Number 15 is Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger is a game that I played this year, and a game that I've heard many great things about. One might say hyperbolic things about. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that all those things are true, because Chrono Trigger is fucking incredible. It is one of the best JRPGs ever made. It is so ahead of its time. A game that came out 20 years ago, and yet gets to the heart of what the good aspects are about JRPGs way better than any that even come out in this day and age. It has a wonderful cast of characters that are so diverse and varied and interesting. It is written extremely well. It is beautiful. It's a Super Nintendo game, so the sprites will hold up forever and ever. It has a battle system that is extremely diverse and unique and interesting and combines powers and things together in ways that you don't necessarily expect, and it just holds up in aspects that are the best. I can't do words anymore. Chrono Trigger's amazing. Play Chrono Trigger.
Well, there you have it. That is our official episode 50, the TNL top 15 to 50 games of all time.
We're really bad about titling things like this, aren't we?
Yes.
Our top 10 games of the year that only came out this year.
Yep, precisely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a lot of good games we just talked about.
There were, but there are still 14 more to go, Bally. So after this break, we will come back and we will argue about what should be our best games of all time ever, of history of forever, for this Nintendo Life. So don't go anywhere. Join us back after the break when we'll be shouting in each other's faces. Alright everyone, welcome back to the show for the final segment of episode 50, in which Bally and I decide what the top 14 games are going to be on this list of ours. We have 14 games. I will read them out in no particular order, and then we will fight about them. We have The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. We have Super Mario Galaxy 2, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, Xenoblade Chronicles, Fire Emblem 7, Guacamelee, Splatoon, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, Super Mario Land 2: The Six Golden Coins, Shovel Knight, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Prime, Guitar Hero 3, and Advance Wars. So, Bally, where are we going to start here?
I was thinking we could be quite brutal and do our bottom 4 first.
Our personal bottom 4 out of these, and then we come together and argue about which one should be. Or do you... Okay, so here's my opinion, is that we choose games that absolutely should be in the top 10 or even top 5. Because we know there are some in here that are going to be in the top 10 regardless.
Why don't we alternate nominating a top and then a bottom, or a bottom and then a top? Mix it up and then...
No, let's just go for the top. Let's go for the top first.
We're going top first.
Yeah.
What needs to be in the top 5 in your mind?
Galaxy 2 needs to be in the top 10, at least.
Top 10 at least?
Yeah. I mean, it could be top 5. Let's just say for the moment into the top 10.
Just top 10. Okay, right. Galaxy 2... I provisionally agree. Galaxy 2 can be in the top 10. What about Smash 4?
Yes.
Okay.
That goes there.
I'm adjusting a Word document the entire time just to let everyone know. Right.
Excellent.
So Galaxy 2 and Smash 4 we both think should be in the top 10.
Yes.
I think Wind Waker should be in the top 10.
Yep, I agree with that.
Right. Do you want to suggest one?
I think Xenoblade Chronicles should be in the top 10.
Okay. I think Link Between Worlds should be in the top 10.
Come back to me. Come back to me on Link Between Worlds.
Okay. Shall I say another one?
Yeah.
I think Metroid Prime should be in the top 10.
I think I'm going to allow it.
For now, for now,
For now.
for now, for now,
But
Metroid
it
Primes.
might mean that I'm making a deal later on.
All right, all right. So games we have left that aren't in the top 10 yet.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem 7, Guacamelee, Splatoon, Link Between Worlds, Mario Land 2, Shovel Knight, Metroid Fusion, Guitar Hero 3, Advance Wars.
Okay. I'm not sure I feel strongly about any of these being absolutely have to be in the top 10.
And so far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in the top 10.
Okay. Those are certs.
So out of the remainder, which do you feel the most strongly about being in the top 10?
I mean, for me personally, I'd like Metroid Fusion to be in the top 10. It doesn't necessarily have to be very high on the list, but if it makes it to like 9 or even 10, I think I feel so strongly about that game that I think it needs to be represented there.
Okay. I think before we have a Metroid Fusion discussion, there are a lot of games left that we will strongly agree on that should be top 10.
Okay.
I would nominate one of, Guacamelee, Splatoon. One of those two, I believe. I'm going to go with Guacamelee. I think that should be in the top 10.
I think Guacamelee should be in the top 10, yeah.
Right. That's another one.
I feel like Splatoon doesn't necessarily need to. I feel like Splatoon can fit outside of that.
Shall we make Splatoon our first nomination to be outside?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, Splatoon's getting put to the bottom. Right.
I think Fire Emblem 7 doesn't necessarily need to be in the top 10.
It's on the border for me. It's on the border.
But it could be a number 10.
It could be
a number 10.
It could be quite a good number 10.
Yeah. We'll provisionally put it there.
Is there anything you feel has to be above Fire Emblem 7?
I think no. I think for me personally, no. I know you'll probably say
I'm going to reach out to you with one. I'm going to reach out.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to reach out with Shovel Knight.
Okay.
For top 10.
I really like Shovel Knight. I really do. But for me, something like Guitar Hero 3 has a bigger shot.
At top 10?
Yes.
Oh. Guitar Hero 3 above stuff like Splatoon.
Okay, let me make an argument.
Wars.
Let me make an argument for Guitar Hero 3.
Okay, here we go.
Guitar Hero 3 changed my life. When I got that game, I not only opened myself up to music that I had never heard before, a lot of my musical tastes were shaped by that game. And I went on to not only play it for hundreds and hundreds of hours and become incredibly apt at playing that game, but I then went and bought a guitar and learned to play guitar because of Guitar Hero 3. I cannot understate the importance of that game. For me personally.
I agree, I just don't see it top 10. I think it's a prime candidate for 10 to 14.
But you played that game a lot with me.
I did. I like it a lot.
It's really good.
My favorite game
it's
within that genre.
It's the best. No, it is fundamentally the best. It has the best songs when it comes to that style of gameplay. The variety in terms of the button presses and the trills and all the stuff that you have to nail down in Guitar Hero 3. It is the most fun to play out of any of those rhythm games. And it has songs that are conducive to it. Because you have the Dragon Force craziness, but you also have the rhythm-based stuff. You have a lot of classics in there. You have a lot of instrumental stuff, which is so much fun to play.
I don't feel like Guitar Hero 3 and Metroid Fusion can get in the top 10.
No, that's crazy. That's crazy. Because I think that we can get both of them in there and we can kick out something else like Mario Land 2. Like, that doesn't need to be in the top 10.
Okay.
I feel like Link Between Worlds doesn't need to be in the top 10.
See, Link Between Worlds, that's
Because I think that the Zelda representation in the top 10 is done with Wind Waker. And I don't think we need two Zeldas in the top 10. I think Link Between Worlds is an excellent game, but it's also nowhere near as good as Wind Waker.
I think comparing it to Wind Waker is unfair.
But that's that's what we're doing.
3D.
That's what we're doing right now, Bally. We're comparing it to Wind Waker. That's the point of this thing.
Yes, I believe Wind Waker is encroaching on top 5. I don't believe Link Between Worlds is top 5, but I do believe it's top 10.
I don't believe it belongs in top 10. Problem with Link Between Worlds is it is very easy. It is just, and I know this is James Jones' argument of like it's a baby game. No, but Wind Waker has a satisfying difficulty curve. I think Link Between Worlds is literally you can waltz through it and not like it is
I think
so
it's easy.
easy.
I don't think you can waltz through it.
Yes, you can. There are dungeons in that game that take 15 minutes. Like that is insane. The dungeons in that game are not memorable at all. Like they don't stand up. They're so short and brisk and they're over before you even know it. They're just done.
Right. And here's my issue. You're wanting both Metroid Fusion and Guitar Hero 3.
Yeah.
Above Link Between Worlds.
Yes.
What am I getting in return?
You get Metroid Prime, and Metroid Prime can be in a higher slot. Because I can, as someone who's not necessarily personally invested in Metroid Prime, I can appreciate and respect it.
What slot are we talking?
I mean,
6.
5 or 6,
5.
Maybe.
Was that a 5 you said?
Maybe.
Shall I hold you to that 5?
I'm not sure if we can do that though, because I think there may be 5 games that we unanimously more agree on.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
I think coming up with a bottom 4 might be quite good right now.
Okay, all right.
I think we're almost agreed that Splatoon is bottom 4.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Are we agreed Mario Land 2 is bottom 4?
Yeah, I agree that.
We're making progress. We're halfway there.
I think Advance Wars is bottom 4.
To getting it. Advance Wars is bottom 4.
What do you think about Fire Emblem 7 versus Advance Wars? Because you've played both.
In terms of a TNL podcast list that we both love, games that we love, Fire Emblem 7 is always going to be Advance Wars between us. I completely appreciate that.
What about your personal feelings?
My personal feelings are obviously that Advance Wars is a better, more fun. I would love to play that game again right now more so than Fire Emblem 7. I still think Fire Emblem 7 is a great game.
Yeah.
And this is a lopsided argument because obviously you've not played Advance Wars yet. But
right, yeah.
I do think... So I accept Fire Emblem 7 should be higher, but I absolutely love Advance Wars.
If this top 10 is more representative of the both of us, then I think that we can allow Advance Wars to be in there. But that does mean that Link Between Worlds gets killed. And I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue with that.
Because you're more...
But it also would mean that Shovel Knight would probably be
You're basically
killed.
saying you're more open to the idea that Advance Wars is a great game versus you are to the idea that you've already played Link Between Worlds and you don't think it's that great.
I'm open to the idea that Advance Wars means more to you personally than Link Between Worlds means to us individually.
I agree with that. So we're agreeing, is that Link Between Worlds bottom 4, but Advance Wars higher? Are we agreed on that?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we can also agree that Shovel Knight doesn't get into the top 10 in that case. Because if we're going... Would you make the argument that you prefer Guacamelee over Shovel Knight? Because for me personally, Guacamelee deserves to be on there, and Shovel Knight is very close. But
it's very close. I agree Guacamelee is better than Shovel Knight.
Okay.
But I see Guacamelee doing some high up stuff.
Okay.
Potentially.
All right.
Let's talk about
okay,
bottom
where are we
4
at?
again.
Where are we at right now? Give me a...
Bottom 4, we're talking Splatoon, Mario Land 2, Link Between Worlds. Top 10, we're talking Galaxy 2, Smash...
Yeah, we don't need to deal with those. Let's talk about the in-betweens.
Xenoblade, Metroid Prime, Guacamelee, Fire Emblem 7 are all making top 10. So the debatables are 1, 2, 3, 4. Shovel Knight, Metroid Fusion, Guitar Hero 3, Advance Wars.
Okay.
We need a number 11 out of those 4. or 11 or lower out of those 4.
Wait, which 4?
Out of Shovel Knight, Metroid Fusion, Guitar Hero 3, and Advance Wars.
Why?
Because
I thought they were still in discussion for if they could be in top 10. Because we've just relegated Splatoon, Link Between Worlds.
We have,
and...
but I'm saying those are the 4 remaining in the middle ground.
And in terms of dropping.
Exactly. They either have to be put down or up now.
Oh, okay. Shovel Knight, Metroid Fusion, Guitar Hero 3, Advance Wars.
If you could drop one of those into the bottom 4, which would it be?
Shovel Knight.
I'm liking this idea because Advance Wars is getting higher, and I like that. And I'm going to fight for Advance Wars more so than Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
So I can agree with you on that if you want to go
I think
ahead
Shovel
with
Knight is an excellent number 11.
I agree.
Right. And I think I like Shovel Knight more than Link Between Worlds.
Right. Shovel Knight is currently at 11. So shall we?
So does that mean that our top 10 has...
Top 10 is currently sitting at Galaxy 2, Smash 4, Wind Waker, Xenoblade, Metroid Prime, Guacamelee, Fire Emblem 7, Metroid Fusion, Guitar Hero 3, Advance Wars.
Okay.
I'm quite happy with that top 10.
Okay, so let's sort out 14 to
4.
10.
Yes. So we've got Shovel Knight, Link Between Worlds, Mario Land 2, Splatoon.
I think Shovel Knight is a good 11. I think we agree on that.
Yes.
I think Link Between Worlds is a good 12.
Yes.
I think Splatoon is a good 13.
Yes.
I think Mario Land 2
I'm quite
is a good
easy
14.
about 13, 14 between those two, actually.
I think, although push comes to shove, I might say Mario Land 2 over Splatoon.
Okay.
Because that... Again, I'm just realising that, yeah, this is the other 2D Mario in this list, aside from Super Mario Maker.
That is true. Right.
And it's weird, because Mario Land 2 is nostalgic for me, but I also think it's an excellent game. Like, I just think it is
an excellent game.
Really fun 2D platformer.
I need to download it and get back to it.
Yeah.
I can do that. Shall we do that?
Yeah, I can say Splatoon at 14, Mario Land at
14,
13.
Mario Land 2, 13, Link Between Worlds at 12, Shovel Knight at 11.
Yeah.
They're fixed for now.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we keep going bottom up?
Okay, so what have we got then? What's our 10?
We have Advance Wars, Guitar Hero 3, Metroid Fusion, Fire Emblem 7, Guacamelee, Metroid Prime, Xenoblade, Wind Waker, Smash 4, Galaxy 2.
Okay.
I am super uncomfortable about Guitar Hero being any higher than 10.
Why?
Because the other games are just so much better.
Guitar Hero 3 is exceptional.
It
is exceptional.
It is
so fucking good. It is the best. It is one of the most fun games I've ever played.
I could make these arguments about most of the other games in this top 10.
No, but no other game in this top 10 has made me go out and buy a fucking musical instrument and learn music.
Okay,
that is on a level that is beyond anything on this list.
But if we're talking about games that change your life, Pokemon should be here, and it's not. Okay, so we need to.
Okay. Let's talk about just pure. If we were to be in a room right now and play a video game.
Yes.
I think if we were both in a room right now.
Yes.
I would be more passionate about playing Guitar Hero than you would be about playing Advance Wars. I think I would have more fun playing Guitar Hero, trying to play Dragon Force on hard, than you would just booting up Advance Wars and playing a map. I feel passionately that I would be having more fun.
I disagree, because I absolutely love Advance Wars.
But here's the thing, Advance Wars, once you know the map, once you've played it before, you're going through the motions.
Aren't you doing that with Guitar Hero?
No, Guitar Hero 3 is music. Here's the thing, music is by nature repeatable, right? That is the nature of music. It is by nature repeatable. And as such, not only is music repeatable in terms of listening back to it, but there is a there's a ladder of perfection which is built into Guitar Hero that encourages you to come back and come back and come back and improve and get better. Whereas Advance Wars is you beat the map. Like
you're not getting Advance Wars at number 10.
why not? I gave you let you have it in this top 10
because
I
Metroid
seceded.
Fusion and Guitar Hero 3 keep getting higher and higher.
They're not getting higher.
They are.
They're just
I
on the,
honestly
there's
think
nothing. There's nothing getting higher.
if you're so passionate about Guitar Hero 3, I will let you put it up higher if you put Metroid Fusion at 10.
Metroid Fusion has to be above Guitar Hero 3.
Then I feel Guitar Hero 3 has to be number 10. You see, the two, I don't think your demands are too high.
I'll put Guitar Hero 3 at 10 if Advance Wars is 9 and Fusion goes higher.
If Fusion goes higher than Advance Wars,
yes, you can put Advance Wars at 9.
I'll do that because I think we mutually agree and we'd like Metroid Fusion.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's do that then. For now.
For now.
Guitar Hero 3 is number 10, Advance Wars is number 9, and Metroid Fusion we want at number 8.
What else is here that could be higher than Fusion, do you think? Because I like Fusion more than I like Guacamelee. I like Fusion more than I like Fire Emblem 7.
I actually prefer Fire Emblem 7 to Fusion. I'm surprised you you love Fusion.
I played Fusion this year, and it remains one of the most satisfying experiences.
What do you see as below Fusion? Fire Emblem 7.
I see Guacamelee below Fusion.
See, I see Guacamelee doing high things.
I can take Metroid Fusion at 8, probably. But I would take Fire Emblem 7 higher then.
Shouldn't Fire Emblem 7 be at 7?
No, I would take Fire Emblem 7 higher. I would put Guacamelee next after Fusion.
You've gone from wanting Fusion as high as possible to Fire Emblem 7 as high as possible.
Well, I've got to have one horse in this race.
I know. Out of both of those horses, which one do you want to back more? Because you have just flip-flopped.
Well, if you're not going to agree with Fusion being higher, then I'm going to have to back Fire Emblem 7.
I'm quite tight between Fusion and Fire Emblem 7, to be honest.
Well, make a decision, man.
But that you care about those two games more so than I do, so
yes.
I want you to back a horse and I'll get behind it, and the other one is the next slot, I reckon. But they're not both above Guacamelee. This is diplomacy.
Diplomacy sucks.
It's quite tough.
How about...
I think that was quite a good offer, though. I have played Fusion and Fire Emblem 7. I love both those games deeply. But I appreciate...
I doubt that. But
huh?
sure. I doubt that you love them deeply, but sure.
I do. But I appreciate you love them deeper than me.
Okay.
So, I'm saying, feel free to pick one, and I will help you get it up the list, but the other one needs to go in now.
I hate you. Okay, what number was it at? 8.
This is for number...
Decided on 8.
Let me put in some numbers so I know what I'm talking about.
Because we've got Guitar Hero 3 at 10, Advance Wars at 9.
Yes.
This is for number 8.
Yes.
I can put Metroid Fusion at number 8.
Okay.
But I also think that Guacamelee should be number 7.
Okay.
And I think that Metroid Prime should be number 6.
Let's slow down. Number 8 is Metroid Fusion.
Okay.
Number 7 is Guacamelee.
Yes.
We're left with Galaxy 2, Smash 4, Wind Waker, Xenoblade, Metroid Prime, Fire Emblem 7. We need the number 6. You think Metroid Prime should be number 6?
I think Metroid Prime should be number 6 because out of these 6 games, 5 of them we have both played and both very much enjoy. Whereas Metroid Prime is a game I have huge issues with, and I'm putting it this high out of respect.
I appreciate.
Purely out
I'm
of
going to
respect.
put Metroid Prime 6. I will say thank you for getting it to number 6 because I think that is quite a good result for Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
So we are left with our top 5.
Oh dear.
Fire Emblem 7, Xenoblade, Wind Waker, Smash 4, Super Mario Galaxy 2. Right.
What goes at 5?
For me personally, it's between Fire Emblem 7 and Xenoblade.
Yeah.
Which one would you more see at number 5? I'd personally see Fire Emblem 7 more at number 5.
I could see Xenoblade at 5.
Wow. Fire
I could see
Emblem's getting
Xenoblade at
damn
5.
high.
I could see Xenoblade at 5. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm.
Let's put
Are you going to agree, or do we need to talk
No,
this
because
out?
I'm not. I don't feel overly strongly about the order of those two. I'll
Okay.
say Xenoblade at 5.
Okay. That'll do.
Right. Okay. Top
So
4.
we're saying Fire Emblem is number 1. Is what you're saying.
Fire Emblem 7's number 4.
Yes.
Not. No, I'm not. You think it's number 4?
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it is as well.
I think it is. I think the thing between Xenoblade and Fire Emblem is really story versus gameplay, right?
Hmm.
And I think mechanically Fire Emblem is so strong for me. Like, it's one of the most strong games mechanically. Xenoblade gets by on its world and characters and story.
Yes.
The gameplay is good,
Yes.
but it's transcendent because of those other aspects. And for me, I think when it comes to a game, mechanics will always win. Which is why I think we
Okay.
can put that as 4.
I agree.
Yeah.
We have our top 3.
Oh dear. Oh boy.
We got Wind Waker,
Yeah,
that little game.
that little game.
Smash 4
Yeah.
and Super Mario Galaxy 2.
I think Wind Waker is 3. Make your arguments. Convince me.
Right. I think Wind Waker is not only the best Zelda of all time, but is the greatest game of all time. It
Yeah, but
combines.
it's your favorite game.
It is my favorite game. That's my punchline. It's
Yeah.
It's it takes everything that's good about Zelda, world exploration, to another level, introducing the sea, your boat, changing the wind, exploring islands. There were few games around at that point in time that A, gave you that freedom, and B, gave you that freedom in a sea environment where you're exploring islands, and especially with its incredibly controversial at the time art style. That art style has stood the test of time, after having been absolutely pilloried at the time for being like taking Zelda in a completely different direction. And in terms of a solid 20-hour game experience, or 15 to 20, depending on how much extra stuff you do, in terms of being a gaming experience of adventure, storytelling, and exploration, there's nothing better on this list.
Xenoblade has an enormous world with huge scope and exploration.
But I think the combat mechanics of an action adventure like Wind Waker outdo Xenoblade in terms of a full package versus its RPG mechanics.
Xenoblade does exploration better than Wind Waker does.
Oh,
it does, and it has a more interesting, varied open world by far. Wind Waker is 90% ocean and 10% little things to do. I like Wind Waker. I think it's an excellent game. It wouldn't be up here if it wasn't. But few things against Wind Waker. Number one, the dungeons are completely unmemorable, and for me, dungeons are a huge part of Zelda. One of the most important aspects of Zelda.
They've never been a big part of Wind Waker.
No, they haven't. The dungeons are not great. They are passable. The world is deceptively big. Like it's not actually that big. It's a deception a lot of the time.
But that's great. It works.
I think it lacks epicness. I think something like Galaxy 2 has this orchestral soundtrack. It has this sweeping universe, right? Wind Waker has an illusion of that. It's not actually that. I don't think Wind Waker is better than Galaxy 2 or Smash 4. I just don't. I can't see it. It is this high purely because you love it so much, and I also agree it's an excellent Zelda. Like, a really good Zelda. Like, really fun combat. Really cool open world. Amazing characters. Tetra is the best representation of Zelda, no doubt. But when it comes down to pure gameplay, and as I said before, we've talked just about Xenoblade and Fire Emblem, when it comes to pure gameplay as an experience, Galaxy 2 and Smash 4 destroy Wind Waker.
I agree.
They leave it in the dust.
I agree when you're talking about gameplay exclusively, something like Smash and Galaxy beat it. I agree that when you talk about story exclusively, Xenoblade beats it. But I'm saying when you put all those things together, there's nothing beating what this game does on the list.
Okay, but that still doesn't mean it's the better game. But okay, here's another argument. Okay. My favourite game of all time is at number 8 on this list. The fact that yours is this fucking high, you should be pleased with, and shut your mouth and get on with it.
Hey, Guitar Hero 3 made it to the top 10.
Yeah, but I'm not arguing that. You're changing the argument.
I'm saying...
The argument is, Metroid Fusion is on this list at number 8, Wind Waker is in the top 3, and I think at 3 it sits nicely. Because, for me personally, I would have Skyward Sword above Wind Waker. You know?
Would you?
Yes, I would. I think Skyward Sword is a more interesting game. I think Wind Waker... Okay, here's my argument. I think Wind Waker is really well executed, but I don't think it is exceptional in any aspect. I think there are games... I think Galaxy 2 and Smash are exceptional in aspects. I think Wind Waker is a solid game, but it is not exceptional in one individual aspect. And that's why it should be number 3.
But that's my entire argument, is that it's exceptional in all aspects.
Right, but the thing that makes a game is having something about it that is exceptional. A thing that makes a game top of a list is having something exceptional about it. Wind Waker is
the art style's exceptional.
Right, but I don't think when you were talking about a video game that the art style is enough to carry it to be an exceptional thing.
I knew this list would come down to this argument.
Look, okay.
This gameplay versus art, music, and that whole experience.
Here's my argument. Galaxy 2 is fucking gorgeous and also has an amazing soundtrack and also is exceptional to play. Smash 4 is gorgeous and also has an exceptional soundtrack and is also exceptional to play.
But they don't have any story.
No, it doesn't. That story doesn't matter. Story is out of this argument. We're talking about a comparison between Wind Waker, Galaxy 2 and Smash 4.
Yes.
Story is out of this argument.
Why?
And, okay, Wind Waker's story isn't that great. It's very generic. If you're using story as a crutch to argue that Wind
It's
Waker
not
should be
generic.
high... No. Okay, tell me, why is it so great?
It's great because every other Zelda has taken place in one existing land, stuff happens, blah blah blah. In Wind Waker, the whole land is flooded from the very off, and you delve deeper into the history of different tribes and races as to their history and why they are on that island, or why this exists. With the Ruto and the Zora, for example, like, the idea that those two races are linked is an incredibly epic thing to do to a series like Zelda. When you're starting on your small island of Outset Island, and you don't know how big or large the game world is. You're sort of discovering one island after another. You eventually get your boat, and then the whole world opens up. That feeling goes beyond even a game like Xenoblade, where yes, going on to Gower Plain is an epic feeling where the game does open up. I agree, but it's not the same as getting your boat to discover islands, all done within the realm of Nintendo, of a really highly polished game where you are, like I said, dungeon exploring.
Right, but now you've
races,
completely gone off
stories.
story, and your point is just dissolved. You've just completely
How
gone
is
off
it?
story. Because now you're talking about exploration. That's nothing to do with story.
No, but I'm saying the two are so intrinsically linked and well done together in a game like Wind Waker.
Okay, but here's the thing. Wind Waker has one moment which is like, oh my god, that's so cool. The rest of it is extremely generic. Number one, someone gets kidnapped, Link goes saves them. Generic trope, used in every Zelda, not a good story point.
It's the thing about going under the sea and
right, okay, that's what I'm
Hyrule
saying. That's the
Castle.
one point. That is the one point in the game where the story stands out as like, oh, it's a great twist, right? But everything else is boring. When you beat Ganon, oh no, he's locked away again for the end of time. It's generic.
But
okay?
they also keep Ganondorf quite secretive throughout the start of the game. You're quite unaware of how that's all going to unfold. It's not
right,
just one
but again,
moment.
the story is still, hey, Ganon's evil, you got to beat him, right? There's nothing interesting about that. That is not stand out.
It's
that's
bollocks.
World. Because the sea. What about the sea? Great, it's a big fucking ocean, and everything was drowned underneath it. Okay, interesting concept, but still, the basic bones of that story are not interesting. They're not, Bally. They're just fucking generic. They're boring.
You've always been against Nintendo stories, and I've always
they're
been
fucking
in favor.
Terrible. They suck.
I completely disagree. I'm sure so many listeners.
Bally,
will agree
okay.
with
Here's
me.
the problem: is I have played a game like The Witcher 3, which is written almost as well as a novel. It's based on a novel, of course, but every interaction in that game is driven by human emotion and human motive, and is placed in a reality in a world that is believable and real and full of characters that feel like they could exist in the real world.
Yes,
Zelda
is
nowhere.
System?
Right, no, but that's what I'm saying. You don't have the context.
It's not relevant to this list and this
No. It is relevant because...
Why?
Okay, here's why it's relevant. Is because you don't have context. I have context for what good video game storytelling is.
So if this list is a combination of both our contexts,
yes,
then it shouldn't be about, I've experienced this incredible story elsewhere, therefore it doesn't stack up against this game, therefore it must be further down the list. Because that's
no, it should be. It should be.
That's talking about your exclusive context.
No, it's not talking about my exclusive context.
It is.
It's talking about my context
3.
in the context of Wind Waker being an average to bad story. It is not interesting. There is no nuance. There's nothing... here's the argument. Witcher 3 could be made into a film and stand on its own two
Witcher
feet.
3
Wind Waker could be made
made
into a children's storybook and stand on its own 2 feet, but it would not win any Academy Awards.
What part of Wind Waker will you be walking around in a swamp and randomly fall in a hole and have to reset the game to get out of it?
That's nothing to do with the story.
It is, because it's strong,
that's nothing to do with the story
mechanically, and I'm talking. Every argument I've been making about Wind Waker is how well it ties everything together, more so than games like Xenoblade or even Witcher 3. It's a complete package.
Right, but you haven't played Witcher 3, so you can't make that argument.
But you're nailing one individual aspect after another.
Right, but
yes,
the reason I'm nailing this one individual aspect is because we have boiled down that aspect is the one where it is the thing that you're making the argument about. Because
which aspect? Story?
Yes. Because as we have just talked about,
no, I will
Galaxy
freely
2.
admit Xenoblade's got a better story.
As we've just talked about, Galaxy 2 does aesthetics just as well as Wind Waker. Galaxy 2 does game mechanics better than Wind Waker. Galaxy 2 does soundtrack just as well or better than Wind Waker. So the one thing that you're nailing down is like, oh, but Galaxy 2 and Smash 4 don't have a story, therefore Wind Waker wins. I'm saying Wind Waker's story is not exceptional. It is not a part of the game that stands out to a degree where you can argue that it should be above those games because of its story, because it shouldn't, because its story isn't exceptional.
In comparison to a game like Galaxy 2, it's not the story exclusively. It's about a game world that you can explore. Galaxy 2 isn't a game world you explore. It's individual
right, but that's making an argument
levels.
Between genres. That's nothing to do with the quality of the game. You're just arguing genres now.
But isn't your argument about genres as well?
No, my argument isn't about genres. My argument is... Okay, here's my argument. You're saying that the story in Wind Waker is what makes it exceptional. Because I asked you, give me
No, it's not. It's the whole thing together.
Right, but that's the problem. And now we're going cyclically, because Wind Waker is not exceptional in any one aspect. There is no individual aspect. Give me one aspect of Wind Waker which is exceptional.
What's the one aspect that's exceptional about Galaxy 2?
The platforming. It's exceptional. It's better than any other video game in the 3D platforming space. It is the top of its genre. It is the top of the utmost of its genre.
Why isn't Galaxy 1 higher? It's the same platforming.
Because Galaxy 2 does what Galaxy 1 does, but better.
How?
Because it improves on every mechanic that Galaxy 1 sets up and adds introductions such as Yoshi and makes him useful and interesting and changes up the structure and makes there more variety in the levels. We're not arguing Galaxy 1 versus Galaxy 2, Bally. All I'm saying is that Galaxy 2 is exceptional in that aspect. Smash 4 is exceptional in its fighting mechanics. Absolutely fucking incredible. Wind Waker is not exceptional in any individual aspect. It's solid all round, but it isn't. Wind Waker should be number 3.
Galaxy 2 should be number 3.
No, okay, why?
Because it's just not as good of a game as Wind Waker.
That's not an argument. You need to give me points. This is the problem. You're just saying it's just not as good of a game. That's
I've
not an argument,
so many
I have given you many
points
points here on my side.
I'm not going to go back into it. I've explained far more points about Wind Waker than you have points about Galaxy 2.
Okay, let's add up our enjoyment of all these games. If we're going to try and make it... Because this clearly is going nowhere.
Right.
We both like Galaxy 2 as a combined whole better than we both like Wind Waker.
I disagree based on the fact
No, you can't disagree because I'm
Yes,
part
I
of this
can.
discussion.
I can't disagree because I think we both like Wind Waker more so than Galaxy 2.
No, because I don't. I think Wind Waker is a great Zelda game, but it is nowhere fucking close to Galaxy 2. Galaxy 2 is one of the best games ever made on this fucking planet. Wind Waker is a great game. And that's all it is. It's a great game.
Is Galaxy 2 better than Smash 4?
Now, see, this is the issue. The Galaxy 2 versus Smash 4 is the multiplayer versus single-player argument. And Smash 4...
I think you take Smash 4 as playing however many players we play it with, which is often between the two of us.
Yes, it is, yeah. I think Smash 4 is one of the most fun things I have played in years. If we're talking about just the experience of me and you playing that game.
Because we're good sparring partners, and
yes, when you have someone who's of equal skill, then it is just... I would argue that Smash 4 is the most fun video game that I can play in any time, space, era. I think if I sit down in a room and they say play a video game, I think I choose Smash 4.
I agree. I think it should be number 1.
So, Galaxy 2 be number 2? This is where we're getting hung up on. I think we can both agree that our number 1 is Smash Brothers 4.
Yeah, we're gonna fight over 2 and 3.
You're just not going to let up, which is my problem, and you're not making good arguments, is my problem.
I can just as easily say I don't think you're making good arguments.
Okay, tear my argument apart then.
I can tear your argument apart because Wind Waker all around is a better game that offers exploration, story, adventuring, solid game mechanics, art, music. I think Galaxy only offers some parts of that, and I think yes,
right, but Galaxy doesn't
those...
need story because that's not part of what is that genre, right? That's not part of what makes that genre.
Yes.
So arguing that its lack of stuff like that is irrelevant.
But also arguing that you can't compare the two, arguing that you have to take the story out of Wind Waker and compare them mechanically against each other also is a false argument.
No, it's not, because video games are unique by their video game mechanics. Video games are not unique by any other aspect. The thing that makes a game is how it plays. Fundamentally, and that is why I'm always focused on mechanics utmost above anything else. Because if a game has a great story and looks gorgeous, but plays like shit, it is not a good video game.
But name one aspect of Wind Waker where the mechanics are anything but perfect.
I think that the sailing has a lot of issues.
Mechanically.
Yeah. I think
How?
that some of the choices they made in terms of that mean that you're wasting time. I think that the combat is fine, but it doesn't do anything unique or interesting like Skyward Sword does. I think that when it comes down to precision platform, when it comes down to the way that a game controls,
I think the
Galaxy
argument
2,
you're boiling down to is that for what it's trying to do, which is, so we're talking about Mario Galaxy 2, for what it's trying to do, which is be a solid 3D platformer,
yes,
it is a better 3D platformer than The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker is an action story-based adventure.
yes. I think that Galaxy 2 is the pinnacle of its genre. I do not think that Wind Waker is the pinnacle of its genre. And that's why
And I will
be
agree,
number 2.
because I think that what could happen with, like, I think Wind Waker is the perfect game of a framework of how you do open world Zelda that can be explored and returned to, which I think they're doing for the Wii U version and whatever. So
right,
like,
I think that if they execute on the Wii U Zelda, Wind Waker will be out of this conversation.
well, that's my point. I'm saying I think we could have this discussion in 5 to 10 years time and there won't be a better 3D platformer than Galaxy 2.
Right, yes.
I would bet a lot more money on there being a better Zelda than Wind Waker, even though it's my favorite game of all time. And for that reason, I'll back down. But I'll admit, I was making some of your arguments. I was making some of your arguments like more summarized. Would you agree?
Well, I'm glad that that's over. Jesus Christ. Alright, Bally. We're done here. I got fucking heated.
Hey, Wind Waker got up to number 3 now.
That's my point! I've got Metroid Fusion at 8, you bastard! I hate you. Alright, what's our top 10, Bally?
Our top 10. Number 10.
Or should we go from 50?
So we go from 50. Let's go from
Alright,
50.
sure.
Have you got a list or shall I read them all?
You read them out.
Number 50, Dragon Quest 9. Number 49, Gunman Clive 1-2. Number 48, Bit Trip Runner 2. Number 47, Mario Kart Double Dash. Number 46, Prince of Persia Sands of Time. Number 45, F-Zero Maximum Velocity. Number 44, Rayman Origins. Number 43, Soul Calibur 2. Number 42, Pilot Wings Resort. Number 41, Super Monkey Ball 2. Number 40, VVVVVV. Number 39, Mario Kart 7. Number 38, Ocarina of Time. Number 37, Codename Steam. Number 36, Kirby Canvas Curse. Number 35, Super Mario Sunshine. Number 34, Twilight Princess. Number 33, Luigi's Mansion 2. Number 32, WarioWare Twisted. Number 31, Super Mario 3D Land. Number 30, Wave Race Blue Storm. Number 29, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Number 28, Fire Emblem Awakening. Number 27, Link's Awakening. Number 26, Super Mario Maker. Number 25, Wario Land Shake Dimension. Number 24, F-Zero GX. Number 23, Phoenix Wright 3. Number 22, Super Metroid. Number 21, Mega Man 2. Number 20, Trine 2. Number 19, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Number 18, Bayonetta 2. Number 17, Super Mario Galaxy 1. Number 16, Pikmin 3. Number 15, Chrono Trigger. Number 14, Splatoon. Number 13, Mario Land 2. Number 12, Link Between Worlds. Number 11, Shovel Knight. Number 10, Guitar Hero 3. Number 9, Advance Wars. Number 8, Metroid Fusion. Number 7, Guacamelee. Number 6, Metroid Prime. Number 5, Xenoblade. Number 4, Fire Emblem 7. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Number 2, Super Mario Galaxy 2. Number 1, Smash Brothers for Wii U.
Well, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the official This Nintendo Life top 50 games of all time ever. And I thought that was fun.
That was really fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's arbitrary, of course. Lists are always arbitrary and stupid, but it's a good process of like trying to put together a group of games and then organize them. It's like trying to get your thoughts in order and put them down on a piece of paper and say, okay, this is actually what I think about these when it comes down to it. And yeah, I think we can both agree it's a pretty good list, and you should probably play a lot of these games, so you should do that, I guess.
I think we're both pretty happy with that list.
Yeah, I think there are some wins and some losses on both sides, but
hopefully equal amounts.
Yep, hopefully.
Just about.
Yeah. Alright, well, I guess that is going to be it for episode 50, Bally. It's been a ride.
It has been a ride.
Jeez.
Both just this episode and to get here has been both two long rides.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I always wanted to, like, have a proper podcast and done in a way that kind of not emblematically, that is imitative of some of my favorite podcasts, in the sense of like recording your audio locally so that it's of a high quality, and putting in like music breaks and stuff, and like making it well produced.
Yes.
And I think that we've managed to achieve that here.
I think so. And I mean,
that is a podcast.
It's almost 2 years ago. It's not quite yet.
Yeah, not quite.
Come November, it will have been going for 2 years. And I remember we had a Skype conversation.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I think it might have been me who said, it'd be really cool. Imagine if we'd like made a podcast. Like,
yeah.
Wouldn't that have been cool if we made a podcast like, RFN or other podcasts we listened to? And I think you were like, yeah, that would have been really cool. And then I think I said, why don't we make one? And you were like, make one? I guess we could. And I think at that point in time you probably thought, Bally's going to hang around for a couple of episodes then, I think.
I was actually like, first of all, I was worried that you wouldn't be able to like play, because you had been in this state, I think, since like the end of our time at school, when you'd kind of fallen off games for a while.
I had, yes.
Like you played stuff, but you didn't really care as much, and you weren't like invested.
The final half of my final year of uni, where I definitely kind of picked up a few of my old games and went back and completed them.
Yeah.
And then I brought my Wii U down to London with me with my 3DS, and it was kind of, I did plan on playing games on a consistent basis, and I guess that was, the podcast just kind of started right in the middle of that sort of process, and all of a sudden I did have all these games that I'd not finished, which I mean has become like such a core part of what we've been talking about. So yeah, it just kind of snowballed, and we just did. I think a crucial part for us was making sure it was fortnightly and not weekly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For so many reasons. A, it allows you time to actually play the games we talk about. B, it stops you burning out. I think for almost 99% of episodes, I'm like super excited about the segment we're about to record, like, because there's been a time gap since the last time we recorded. I might have played something. I'm excited to spout my views and things, and it just makes everything a bit more fresh to keep it fortnightly.
Yeah, it also means that I don't have to die editing every week.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It takes a lot of effort and time to edit a show to make it of a quality that we wanted it to be. And I think,
and for those who don't know, Nbz does all the editing. Like,
yeah.
I'm the Twitter man. I'm the guy who does the tweets. I schedule the tweets. Yes, that takes a little bit of time, but it takes a fraction of the time compared to, editing a podcast.
Yeah,
and like editing out all those times that I just slip over my tongue, like reading out emails, and we think, oh, I'm gonna have to edit that out. Oh, like that just happens so often, and yeah. So thank you for all your editing, Nbz.
That's all right. I'm used to it. I've done it for fucking years now, I guess. As a YouTuber, I feel like editing is kind of just part of my DNA at this point. But yeah, it's appreciated. I think it's interesting because I wanted this to be more of a podcast than, I mean, we put out the YouTube video, but I feel that's more like necessity than anything else. Like, there are a lot of YouTube podcasts that have a different tone and format, I feel, to the way that a lot of iTunes podcasts are delivered. You know, there's lots of video-based stuff, and a lot of the time the audio isn't at high quality because they're just going over Skype with webcams, and you know, that's, I can appreciate that in a podcast format, but for me, what I really wanted to do with this show was to make it something that could stand amongst the RFNs and the NVCs and the giant bombcasts of the world, where it is first and foremost an audio product, and that's the preferred format for me, honestly.
Because it's the preferred format we've enjoyed over the years from
Yes.
all those podcasts you've just mentioned. They are first and foremost a audio podcast that you listen to away from screens.
Yes.
And that's how we hope that you enjoy it at home.
Yes.
Sort of. Yeah, obviously, there'll be plenty who will enjoy it in front of screens, but
Yes. But doing something else probably at the same time, I guess, because there's not much to watch on the YouTube version. But if you do stare at the YouTube screen, hi, that's cool, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up, Bally, for episode 50.
I think it will. It's been a long one.
It has indeed. Where can people go? Send us emails, find us on the internet, all that stuff. Tell them.
You can follow the podcast Twitter account at TNL Podcast. That's at TNL Podcast. If you want the immediate updates of when the next show's out, if we've done some sort of video or something, we'll tweet it. We'll always tweet it there first. That's your first point of call if you want to find out what the podcast is doing. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ballyman91, BALLYMAN91. I tweet lots of stuff, getting lots of Twitter arguments with people, and tweet lots of pictures of my life sometimes, and lots of other fun stuff.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Lord Nbz. I'm also Lord Nbz on Miiverse. Keep playing my Mario Maker stages. I haven't made one in a while, but I guess
neither have I. I need to do that.
Yeah. We'll get back to that. We'll do more Mario Maker stages, so keep your eyes peeled on that. Of course, you can go to iTunes and download this show. And a really nice thing for our 50th episode would be if you could go and review us on iTunes. Now, we mentioned this here and again, but I want to make a big push here. If you enjoy the show, if you like what we do, if you are appreciative of the audio in your ears, then please go to iTunes and give us a review. It means a huge amount. It allows us to expand our audience into that sphere, and that means more interaction with new people, more interesting questions from the listeners, and all that good stuff. So do please review us on iTunes.
And even if you're not listening on iTunes, maybe you're watching the YouTube video or listening through a download from elsewhere, even if you're doing that, it'd be great if you just quickly got a quick iTunes account, just logged in, said, oh, that's TNL Podcast, and let us know what you think of the show through a rating or a review.
Yes. Yeah. We appreciate that a huge amount. That's the best thing you can do for us. So
the best.
Go do it, I guess. Yeah. Bally, that's it, I think. Is there nothing else we need to add here?
Thank you for putting Wind Waker so high up on that list. I
hate you.
I really enjoyed it, and it was a good heated discussion at the end.
It was
very good.
It was good fun. All right, well, that is going to close us out for episode 50. Join us once again in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be back to our regular schedule, just talking about Nintendo. So, yeah, we will be back then. Send us some emails, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time. Goodbye. The musical interludes used in today's show were Fighting with All of Our Might from Shovel Knight, copyright Yacht Club Games 2014, and a remaster of Yearnings of the Wind from Chrono Trigger, copyright Squaresoft 1995.